keys to the kingdom. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord. We got the keys to the kingdom. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord. There's joy in the kingdom. Hey, I know it is. There's peace in the kingdom. Hey, yes it is. We got the keys to the kingdom. Yes we do, I know we do. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord. We got the keys to the kingdom. Yes we do, I know we do. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord. No matter what you're going through, Jesus got the keys for you. You can bind things on earth, it shall be bound in heaven. You can lose things on earth, it shall be loose in heaven. We will. We got the keys to the kingdom. Yes, we do. I know we do. Gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Ever you we got the keys to the kingdom. Ever you we gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Keys to the kingdom. He had them for me and you. Keys to the kingdom, I know he do. We got the keys to the kingdom. Yes, we do, I know we do. Gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Ever you we got the keys to the kingdom. Joy, peace. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Ever you we got the keys to the kingdom. Yes, we do. I know we gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Peace. Got the keys to the kingdom. Yes, we do. I know we gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Ever you ready? The keys to the kingdom. Yes, we do. I know we gonna unlock the things from the Lord. Ever you ready? The keys to the kingdom. We gonna unlock the things from the Lord.
Blessings, blessings. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, welcome to the Kingdom Citizens of Wisconsin show. I am your host, Dr. David D. King. I'm excited to be here with you guys tonight. And I know this is not our normal night, but we had some things that had to be taken care of on yesterday. And so we committed to be here once a week and be fed and taught by the constitutional queen to teach us the Constitution. And those of us who already know about it, we can get a how should I say, a fresher recourse. And sometimes she hit us with questions and, you know, it makes us wonder. We do have the call-in line as well. You can call in at 414-585-9511. That's 414-585-9511. We are excited to get this show going. But before we do that, I want to remind everybody about tomorrow. Tomorrow, book signing tomorrow. Why it is important to stay in the middle from a kingdom perspective. We want you guys to come out tomorrow at 3 o'clock, from 3 to 5. And address is 4030 North 34th Street in the city of Milwaukee. That's 4030 North 34th Street in the city of Milwaukee, from 3 to 5. We're going to open up and have a discussion about the book, and then we will be doing the book signing. So I'm excited about tomorrow. They are selling like hotcakes. I thank God for it. We just ordered another batch of books that will be in 2 more days. So they are going. You need to get yourself a copy of Why It Is Important to Stay in the Middle from a Kingdom Perspective. And you can order that book. Hold on, let me put the address up and the phone number. And you can call and order the book. If you close, we'll deliver it. If you far, we will mail it to you. But there's the number there, the email. You can just let us know you want the book, and you will get the book. So I'm excited about the book. I'm excited about tomorrow, where we're going to have a glorious time with the book signing. And so we're excited. And now I am ready to be fed. Are y'all ready to be fed? Let's bring in the constitutional queen.
Hello.
Hello there. How are ya?
Good. Good to see you all today, or hear from you all today.
Yes, we are excited to hear what you got to say today.
Okay. So you're right. I will start with a question. So actually I've got 2 questions. One has to do with the Constitution itself, and the other has to do with the Second Amendment. So I'll start with the Constitution one. So there was oh gosh, how can I say this? There was a poll that went out a little bit ago, and it was talking about the educational level of American citizens. So one of the questions that was asked was, have you read the Constitution? And give a wild guess the percentage of people who have not read the Constitution at all, like ever seen it, read it. They do know it exists, but there's a percentage of people in America who have not read the Constitution at all. And this was done in 2022, early 2022, I believe.
Well, I'm not going to touch that because I saw what you said. So, answers is coming up already.
Ooh, 98%. Close, but no cigar. Not quite. Oh, fun. All right, I'll give you about 30 more seconds and then I'll tell you.
Come on, people. Take a guess.
We're not that bad yet, but now if you were asked how many people understand the Constitution, that is probably a pretty good number. I had at one point, there was somebody I knew who told me that the Constitution was written for experts to interpret and that he did not need to know it himself. So
Oh, wow. So ask the question again, because people are steady coming in.
Okay. So there was a poll done asking how many people had read the Constitution. It was part of a larger kind of exploratory poll. They were trying to find out, the civic educational levels of the American people. 75.5. Okay, we're getting closer. So the poll asked what percentage of people in America have ever read the Constitution. So read it from cover to cover. I believe later on they did ask how many understood it, but that was a different question altogether. But yeah, how many people have read the Constitution?
I see J-Rod is the only one bold enough to
I
give it.
noticed. I want to hear from Stacy. Stacy, take a guess.
Yep, Stacy, take a guess. And
How
I
many
want
people have read the Constitution?
not enough.
Not
No, give
enough.
us a percentage. Nice try.
We got a percentage going here. We've got a good idea. Not enough. That is true. That is very true.
But give us a percentage.
Let's see.
Come on.
We got to have more than Jared getting involved in this. Come on.
And
85%. Okay. Nope. You guys were a little bit on the high side. Now, if I'd asked the question, how many people understand the Constitution, those would probably be better numbers. But 56% of Americans have not read the Constitution. So well over half of Americans have not read the Constitution, which says a whole lot for educational system, doesn't it?
I know. Hey, there goes Spotted T. I was wondering she was
there
joining us.
you are. Hi. So we just asked a question about the Constitution. How many people in America have actually read it? 56%, according to the poll numbers, have read the Constitution. And I was saying that gives us a pretty good idea of the educational system in America. And the sad thing is that at one point in the American educational system, we actually had a requirement. So there were 4 documents that people had to have read by the time they graduated from the 8th grade. This is actually a bonus question because I do have one on the Second Amendment. What are these documents? There were 4 documents that they had to have read, and not only read, but understood it enough to answer like an oral test on it.
Ooh.
So there were 4 of them. By the 8th grade, they had to have these read. I like that. It's good background music. That one's a little bit longer, so I'll give you a little bit extra time on it. But these were literally required readings for education, because the founding fathers believed that if you did not understand your founding documents, if you did not understand these documents, you would not understand America, and therefore you couldn't be a good citizen.
Come on, people.
We're getting there.
He wants you to repeat the question.
I'll repeat the question. There were 4 documents that every school child had to have read by the time they reached 8th grade, and not only read, but understood enough to answer oral questions about it. So they would be tested on these documents. I mean, these kids basically memorized them. So there were 4 of them. You know what? I'll just say, give me one of the 4, and I will tell you which ones. I will tell you which ones they were afterwards.
And while we're waiting,
You'll put me to sleep, Dr. King.
I know, right? Okay, I'll give y'all a little upbeat so y'all can.
There we go.
So Stacy said the 10th commandment.
Okay.
The Bill of Rights. The Constitution.
Okay. David's book. Nice. If they could have traveled forward in time, that would have been one of them, I'm sure.
I'm sure of that.
Okay, so yeah, we got a good. Okay. Jared hasn't chimed in yet. Do you have a answer yet? Oh boy,
There
I
you
don't
go.
remember what I did yesterday. Nice. All right. Okay, so you guys were very, very close. You a couple of you got it correct. Okay, so the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Bible, and George Washington's farewell address. Now, they got bonus points if they also knew the Magna Carta. So any one of those. Rush review
Wow.
series, nice. So yeah, so the Declaration and the Constitution, the Bible, not just the 10 Commandments, but the Bible, and George Washington's farewell address. So these were all books that they had to have read from cover to cover, or documents they had to have read from cover to cover by the time they graduated 8th grade. Now, keep in mind, this was at a time when most people only got to 8th grade, if that. So they started young and they started very, very early. In fact, in the 1800s, they actually had books like this.
Oh, wow. You're getting me one of those.
Yeah, so it's on wallbuilders.com. You can order it through their store. I think it's like $5.99 or something like that. Anyway, so it has questions like, who is to determine whether any law is contrary to the Constitution or not? The people themselves? And you have to answer it. You have to answer questions like that. How about this? Have children a right to choose them? So choosing the rep as far as, do children have the right to vote? And it says no, they're too young.
Wait
So,
a
yeah.
minute. So if they understood that the children was too young to comprehend to vote, and today they're telling us children can comprehend to change
Yeah.
their sex.
Yeah. Well, the progressives want to get children's votes. They want kids as young as 15 and 16 to be voting. So yeah, but no, they understood that children were basically they had human rights, but like we had talked about before, the right to vote was not even a thing for them. There was a specific responsibility that happened when you were a citizen of the United States, you were of age, and you were able to comprehend the leaders that needed to be elected, right? So yeah, so that was an interesting thing. Then they had a question like this. Here we go. If the people, let's see. Oh, no. So if the people shall be of opinion that any of the acts of their rulers have been wrong, may they meet together to petition, that is publicly to ask, that these acts may be altered. It says, yes, if they meet peaceably, but if they behave in a riotous or disorderly manner, they may and ought to be punished. So, can we
So
recall any time in the recent history where there was mostly peaceful but fiery protests?
So that's why we have the riots, because nobody read the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The next question after that was, may they meet with arms in their hands? Says, yes, the right to keep and bear arms is one which belongs to the citizens at all times. But arms must not be used except to support the laws or to resist an enemy or those who would do us harm. Remember last time we were talking about the rights coming along with responsibilities?
Oh, yeah.
But this was written in the 1800s. And this was very, like 18, I think, when was it written? Hold on, let me find it. 1828. So not very long after the 1790s, when all of the constitutional rights were being put in. And so this was very recently after our nation had been established. And those questions were asked of school children. So do you think that the school children back then protested that they were too young to vote? Probably not.
Wow.
So yeah, so this was a thing. We have multiple choice tests right now. So you can get one of 4 questions is right, and some in nursing school, there were actually, the way that they set up the test, there were multiple choice answers, and one of them was more right than the others. So yeah. So if you got the less right one, you didn't get the answer to the question. But back then they actually had to know the answers to the questions, not just, oh, I'm going to pick a letter and hope that it's the right one, right? So second question, and this is on the Second Amendment. It's another one about a poll that was taken in March of 2021. President Joe Biden, I'm sorry, former Vice President Joe Biden promised new gun control measures in the wake of 2 recent mass shootings, but voters overwhelmingly believe their right to own guns is protected by the Constitution. So the question, the poll that was asked was, do you favor or oppose? Well, first, does the Constitution guarantee the right of an average citizen to own a gun? And then, do you favor or oppose repealing the U.S. Constitution's Second Amendment, which currently guarantees the right of most citizens to own a gun? Now, I like that they said most citizens. I'm thinking that meant you can't, like you can't be a criminal in jail and own a gun, but regardless of how they worded it.
Look at that.
It's a racist. Nice. Yeah. That's funny. They are racist. They're totally on white supremacy. I mean, think about it. The people who set the catechism of the Constitution, they were all old white guys. So yeah, we're racist. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Anyway, so this Second Amendment poll was taken. What was the percentage of U.S. voters who were in support of not only saying that the U.S. Constitution guarantees the right of an average citizen to own a gun, and that they and not oppose, or I'm sorry, and opposing the repealing of the Second Amendment? What was the percentage?
So you want to know the percentage of
Americans
who knew the Second Amendment?
Nope, who know that the Second Amendment protects our right to keep and bear arms,
Okay.
and also opposes repealing the Second Amendment. So the Americans who understand that the Constitution has the right to keep and bear arms, but also they do not want to take the Second Amendment out.
Oh, okay. All right, y'all. We're going to give y'all a beat while you think. All right, come on with y'all answers. We're looking for a percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Give us your percentage. We're waiting.
Say 15 more seconds.
I think
Everybody went silent.
I know. I think they got nervous.
Either that or I shut everybody down when I said former Vice President Joe Biden.
Oh, they must not be on here because they would have just tore this thing up.
Yeah. Less than half. So I'll say 40%. Okay.
Okay, 40%. Do we have any more? We got 40%.
Any other contenders?
40% going once. Oh, we got a 45%.
Ooh, Jared, I want to be over at your house. What are you cooking?
Oh, that's Stacy cooking.
Oh, Stacy, I'm sorry. Stacy, I want to be over at your house.
So we got a 40 and 45.
Okay.
Let the price be right.
Okay, so you guys will be surprised, and maybe this will offer you some hope from this poll. Now, do take in mind that it was a smaller poll, so obviously we've got a little bit. Ooh, bacon, yum. Okay. We've got, there's probably a margin of error in there, but 76% of the people polled said that they did know that the Constitution had the Second Amendment, and they were not willing to repeal it. So that gives me a little bit of hope because yeah, that's, 76%, that's a pretty good number, especially considering our lack of education in this country and the lack of understanding of why the Second Amendment was put in there. So yeah, so I could ask, let's see, can I say I feel hopeful? Yes, of course you can say you feel hopeful.
Okay, now who's saying, can I
Who is
feel
that?
who we want to know who that is. because your name did not come up. So please tell us your name so we know who we're talking to.
All right. And while we're finding that out, I'm going to continue. So,
Oh, that's Jennifer.
oh, hi, Jennifer. Good to see you on here. Yes, I do feel hopeful because I think there is a revival, not just spiritually, but civically. I believe that there is some spirit in our land that is sweeping through, and we are starting to see a rise of people who are starting to understand, or at least starting to read the Constitution. I mean, the first step is admitting you haven't. Second step is reading it, and then we'll work on the understanding part as we go. So,
There you go.
I am hopeful. So, so James Wilson was one of the founding fathers, and he signed. He was one of, I believe, only 4 people who signed both the Declaration and the Constitution. He was on the original Supreme Court, so he was appointed by George Washington. He wrote the first law book in America for the first law school in America, so he has kind of a pretty good good credentials there. And he was heard saying once that if you get robbed in your own home, it's not the police's fault, it's yours. Because you should have defended yourself. You can't blame the police for that because you have the duty of self-defense. So, completely different idea from what we have now in places like California, where if you self-defend in your own home, you're actually taken to jail and tried for murder because I guess you weren't supposed to defend your property.
No, you're supposed to let them come in and just take over.
Yeah, like just stand back and go, okay, you can have whatever you want. Yep, we can see you, Jennifer.
Oh, she's gonna say name check.
Yeah, name check. All right. So that was a founding father, and so he understood a very important thing, that the right of self-defense wasn't just or the right to keep and bear arms was not based on any arbitrary thing. It was based on the natural laws of your right and responsibility to defend yourself. And when we talk about natural laws, think of what you see out in nature, right? So you see animals who are very territorial, and if a spider's web is invaded, he has the right to defend it, right? That spider web is a pretty important part of the spider's life cycle. And so if it's invaded by another animal, he has the right to defend it. You think of how many venomous creatures we have. They've been given that natural self-defense mechanism, right? And so when we're talking about natural law, a lot of the founders understood that based on what they saw out in nature. Remember in the Declaration on nature and nature's God. So he was talking about there is a higher moral authority, the creator of the universe, and he's set in place these natural laws in our world. And so if you look around in nature, you see all these things. Now you'll get arguments from some more progressively minded people who are like, well, then that means that homosexuality is a good thing because natural law, there are some monkeys in certain monkey tribes that practice homosexuality. There's certain dogs and whatever, and they'll go through all of these things. And it's like, no, because one, you're putting in kind of anthropomorphic idea onto these animals, stating that they're doing what human beings do. When the supposedly homosexual behaviors aren't actually homosexual, because their sexuality is a little bit different in the animal kingdom than it is in the human world, right? So they base all of their actions and attitudes on instincts. We don't know all of the reasons why animals do certain things that they do. But yeah, you'll get those arguments as well. So when we are taking into the account nature and the natural law, we look around and we see what the majority of animals do, right? And we see what natural law allows and all of that stuff. And we also have to put some common sense behind it as well, and not put human characteristics on the animal kingdom. So
no, we're not paying attention to him.
Oh my goodness, Rustin. Oh,
this is how Rustin let us know he's on.
Hi, Rustin. All right. So actually, I've got a good quote for that. Give me 1 second. Let me find it because I've got a bunch of them. Here it goes. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is as a last resort to protect against tyranny in government. That was Thomas Jefferson. So, yeah. So let's not automatically go to shooting everybody who comes around. But yes, it is true. So the right of self-defense, we do have the right to keep and bear arms. Now, here's a question, because we'll get this from a lot of people in law. I questioned every single DA attorney general candidates and asked them what their idea of keeping and bearing arms meant. And everyone said, within reason, people can keep guns for self-defense. Now,
Within reason.
within reason. And I pushed back on that. I said, what do you mean within reason? Well, one of them said red flag gun laws were a good idea because we don't want just anybody with a mental problem to be owning a gun. Another one said, well, you can't keep weapons that are no longer serviceable, no longer workable, and you can't keep a cannon in your backyard. That's just not right.
But what if I wanted to keep a Uzi?
So that would be the within reasonable clause. It's not a weapon you need because it's too much firepower.
But wait,
Yeah.
wait. I got a question for you.
Okay.
If the Second Amendment is to allow us to protect ourselves from the government, right?
Mhm. Yep.
The firepower that the government is going to come with, what, we going to have a little cap gun? Pow.
Well, didn't you hear Joe Biden say that, you're not going to need guns for a government or coming against a government. We got what was that big plane he was talking about? We got it was some sort of military plane. He's like, those are the things that you would need. So he was literally saying, if you want to fight the government, you need some military planes, you need the full force of the Navy and all of these other things behind you. You're not going to get anywhere with the gun.
So that means we don't want you to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. Oh, that's hilarious.
Rosie,
I don't like spiders either. I should say I like them from a very good distance and outside of my personal property.
So is it self-defense to kill a spider?
I would say so, yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go there.
Let's see. If we decide and push the red flag laws, wouldn't that come? Yes, unfortunately, they would use it against us, and they've got their own definition of insanity. So,
wow,
that's funny. 30 you. Mildly for down. It's not that good. I'm trying to see where he was. Yeah. Let's see. What did Rosie say? Joe Biden, that sounds like a threat against the people. Yes. Well, he's known for threatening the people. So yeah, that's probably par for the course in where he's considered. But yeah. All right. So we've got many quotes. I did not count them all because there were too many to count. Many quotes from the founding fathers and from presidents down the line talking about the reason for keeping and bearing arms. And every single one of them had to do with our role as American citizens, our role as we the people. If we wish to preserve liberty, if we wish to keep the freedoms and the rights that we've been given by God, our best way to do that is through self-defense. Now, again, he said, many of them said it's the last resort. You don't want to go immediately to, if the government passes a law you don't like, you don't just go shoot up the congressional buildings, right? You petition the government, you give them your redress of grievances, you talk to them, and you work to get better people in voted in. But as a last resort, if the government knew that 3 million Americans with millions and millions of guns were willing to stand up together and form their militia and stand against the government tyranny, we would be potentially in a different place right now because um, we want to show our might without necessarily having to use it. Does that make sense? So America once was the greatest superpower in the world because we had an amazing military. We had a strong army and strong navy. We were defended. And we didn't have to use that power to be that way, right? People in other countries thought twice about going to war with us because we had the strongest military. We had the strongest defense system. Our borders were not wide open. And so they understood if we try to attack America, we're going to lose. Now, they tried it in World War II. Obviously, they lost, right? um, so, when the government's on our side, defending and keeping our liberties, that's a good thing. And we want to encourage that. But when we see what's happening today, we're seeing the military, we're seeing the police force, we're seeing many different aspects of law enforcement coming against American citizens. And there's going to come a day very, very shortly, hopefully not too shortly, but there's going to come a day where we American citizens are going to have to stand up and keep and bear and use our right to keep and bear arms, because we're going to be overrun otherwise. We're going to be at war with our own government. So that is something to take into consideration. But anyway, back to the different founding fathers and their ideas. James Monroe was a big proponent of it. He said once, "Our country may be likened to a new house. We lack many things, but we possess the most precious of all, liberty." And he says, "The right of self-defense never ceases. It is among the most sacred and alike necessary to nations and to individuals." Now, what he was saying there was, not only do nations have to have the ability to defend themselves, but even more importantly, we individually have the right and we need the ability to defend ourselves, because as they knew, as the founders understood, human nature doesn't change. We are sinful human beings. We are sinful beings. And when we form governments can, because they're run by sinful people, governments can overstep their boundaries. They ignore the laws that were set in place. They ignore the restraints that were set around them. And so they knew this would be an issue. If there was an uneducated citizenry, if there was an immoral citizenry, it would follow very quickly that our government would become a tyranny. So, let's see, who else? James Madison, it said, "It should always be remembered that this law, natural or revealed," we're going back to the idea of natural law, "flows from the same divine source. It is the law of God. Human law must rest its authority ultimately upon the authority of that law, which is divine." It's, again, why we see the difference between a mass shooter who goes in and shoots up a school full of children and teachers versus a man who's defending his family and shoots an intruder who comes into his home to steal and kill and destroy, right? We know the difference because we know there is a higher moral law. It's written in every one of us because we were created in the image of our Creator. So, let's see what else. We've got Thomas Jefferson, who says, "What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms." He wrote this to James Madison in 1787. So, I mean, every one of them. Thomas Jefferson was another one who's prolific on the right to keep and bear arms. George Washington, there is nothing so likely to produce peace as to be well prepared to meet an enemy. And he knew what well prepared meant, right? He was a soldier. He was a general and commander of the armies before he became president. So he understood the lack of preparation because they suffered through that in the beginning of the war. And then once they were prepared, they were able to actually win that war. Let's see, what else do we have? So many from... No man should scruple or hesitate a moment to use arms in defense of so valuable a blessing on which all the good and evil of life depends, is clearly my opinion. Yet arms should be the last resort. Again, he's saying don't use that as the first resort, but make it a possible resort, right? Make it a possible thing. If you lose your right to keep and bear arms, you've lost your defense. And this is the thing, when we lose our right to defend what we have, our persons, our families, our property, all of that, then we have none of those rights because we've handed them over to the government. It was very, very interesting. Before any tyrannical government took over, the first thing they did was remove the people's right to bear arms. You go through Germany in 1930s, Hitler, one of his first things, taking away all arms. Russia, Lenin, Stalin, they all took away the arms of the people. They knew that the moment they took away their right to keep and bear arms to defend themselves, that they would lose very quickly every other right they had. Now, do we lose the rights? From a biblical perspective, no, those rights are still there, but it makes it a whole lot harder to defend them when we have nothing to defend them with.
Yeah. And I think that's where people miss it, because when they hear things about the Second Amendment, we get different things, right? Because now they added hunting into it.
Oh yeah.
And I'm so sick of that. And,
you and I talked about that, where we laugh about it because we know, based on our understanding of history, that they did not put the Second Amendment in there because they just got back from a manly hunting weekend, right? And left their wives at home with the kids. That wasn't what they were doing. They weren't out dressed in orange, blaze orange, and trying to kill all the birds in the area.
Right. And the thing about it is, we are going in the direction that Hitler them did, because when they made those so-called laws to get a permit to carry a gun, what they was doing was making a list of all the people that had guns. So when they ready to come, they come into your house first.
Yep. And that's the thing. This is what we do not understand. Every time we fill out a permit, every time we buy a hunting license, every time we sign for a background check on when we purchase a gun, they immediately have us on a list. The government has knowledge of who owns the guns and who doesn't. And so there's you'll get people who say, well, we've got to regulate somehow. We can't just give guns to just anybody. And that is, in a sense, true, because you don't want somebody who's abused that right, like a murderer, for instance. You don't want them to have easy access to do it again. But then we're getting into the criminality and the responsibility of that right? Remember last week we talked about the responsibilities that come with our rights. We have the right to keep and bear arms. We do not have the right to kill needlessly or with no purpose and nothing to do with self-defense. And so these are the things that, because of the fact that we've gotten to be such an immoral nation, as a people in general, we've gotten to be so immoral, we do not put the rights in line with the responsibilities, and therefore the less we have the moral background, the moral standard, the more laws are being created, because then the government has to step in and become God, right? And so we've got this vicious cycle. The more lawless we get as a nation, the more laws get put into place.
And when we look at it from a standpoint of law-abiding citizens.
Mhm.
The law-abiding citizens are the minority because criminals is not registering their guns. They're not asking for a CCW. And if they come trying to take guns, they're not giving theirs up.
Nope. I know, because so then you've got the idea that all of these laws that regulate our right to keep and bear arms are at enhancing the criminals' abilities to use the arms without responsibility, without consequence, right?
Right.
So yeah, so this is an ongoing vicious cycle, and the only way, again, we can get back on, onto a lawful reading and keeping of the Second Amendment is to once again turn back to our Savior, turn back to our higher moral standard, and that's part of the process. And if we don't do that, we will go the other logical direction, and we will see at some point our right to keep and bear arms completely infringed on. And again, it's a slow, insidious fall, but we're seeing it more and more. They're coming up with more and more legislation, more and more regulations. Certain states, you can't carry a gun in public. The concealed carry license, that was, oh my gosh, that was done by a Republican in Wisconsin,
I
Scott
know.
Walker, right? And he says this is one more step into the Second Amendment, in the Second Amendment direction. What he should have said was, we're not doing concealed carry. We're going to go with the Second Amendment, which says Congress, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Congress shall make no laws, right? This was what the whole Bill of Rights was about. Congress doesn't get to touch this. We don't make legislation
Right.
against the right to keep and bear arms.
Yeah.
Let's
But
see.
I just got a statement for all of those who want to take my guns.
Are you experiencing severe mental anguish?
That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting them. And the thing about it is, everybody said, well, we just got to obey. No, we don't just obey, because them same ones, and it was funny because the same people that was running around hollering, defund the police, was the first one to holler, where is the police?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to understand what you're asking for. You don't just ask for something. Find out what it's going to cost. Find out what's going to happen. And then because they say, well, everybody has a problem and guns is bad. I say, well, then why didn't you take everybody's car?
Yeah.
Because
there's a small number of people who drink and drive, and they hurt people every year when they're driving their cars, right?
Right.
Yeah. It is the interesting argument with that, though, is the car is not you. The car is property rights, right? We have the right to own property, so we have the right to own a car, but it has nothing to do with defense. You don't use a car to self-defend usually. Now there might be certain times, but usually we don't think of a car as a self-defense weapon, right? We think of it as a place that gets us from A to B, and that sort of thing. So those two there, you're doing apples and oranges there in those arguments, and it kind of in some ways almost belittles the idea of self-defense, because self-defense is a fundamental human right to protect our right to own property. So having that car is only defensible by having the right to own and to keep and bear arms. Does that make sense? Our right to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness, all of those are only defensible by our right to keep and bear arms. So you cannot have, so I shouldn't say this. Let me reword that. Our rights are God-given. They will always be there. But there are certain times in history where those rights are harder to defend because we've willingly handed over our right to defend them, right? Let's take my phones. Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's take my phones.
But you know, if we start that argument, you know, we got to go all the way. You're saying guns is deadly. It's not the gun, it's the person who has the gun.
Exactly. It's just like saying that what was it, that SUV drove through a parade and killed killed several people. No, the SUV didn't drive itself. It was the person behind the wheel who did that, right?
Right.
Like, so we separate these things out. We say, and we hear these, I'm sorry to say this, but these stupid kids who don't know what they're saying running in the streets going, guns kill people. Let's get rid of guns. And you're like, no, because guess what? There are guns that are used to kill people by somebody pulling that trigger. And then there are guns that are used to defend the lives of those who would be killed. It's not the gun itself that is immoral or moral. Oh, are we gonna have a meme war or a joke war tonight?
A joke, I guess. But you know, also though, when we look at our
Gosh, Rustin.
Rustin, go to your room. Go to your room. Stand in the corner until we tell you to come out.
I'm telling your wife on you.
Yep, we're telling. We're telling. And so
that's funny.
when they try to use the kids, right? The young people, and they say, well, gun kill and da da da. And then you think about it and you say, well, we got to get rid of your alcohol. It kills.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of food because if you overeat, it kills. We got to get rid of TV because it makes folks kill. You got to get rid of music. I remember when I was coming up, I think it was Queen. They had a song, Mama, I Just Killed a Man.
Yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody. Mama, I just killed a man.
Yes.
Put a gun against his head. Pulled the trigger, now he's dead. Yeah, that one.
So that one. So now, should they be charged for party to a crime because somebody listened to that song and went and did it?
I don't know. We had that same discussion about Bernie Sanders talking about, the evils of the Republicans. And then a guy who followed Bernie Sanders went out and shot up a Republican baseball game, a congressional baseball game. So the idea is if you, and this goes back to the free speech thing, right? If you go and you tell somebody, I'm going to pay you $5,000 if you go and kill my ex-wife, right? Then you are morally responsible for that person doing it. They are also morally responsible for taking that money and doing it, right? But you have actually committed the crime too because you are the one who instigated it. If you just say, oh, I'm so angry, I just want to kill something, right? It's a thought process. You're frustrated. You're not actually telling somebody to do it.
But wait a minute. Since we own this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Since we own this, and
yes, I did know Remington was a gun manufacturer.
But wait,
no, I don't have a Remington.
But wait, you know what's funny is that in Milwaukee, our aldermen wanted to sue Hyundai and Kia because people were stealing the cars.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there like, you're going to blame Kia?
Yeah. For the crime rates that you guys are instigating.
You defund the police, and then all of a sudden you says, let's sue them because they made it too easy to steal a car.
Yeah. It's going back to that lack of responsibility. They want their rights without having the consequences that go along with defiling those rights, right?
Yeah.
And so we can't even define what a right is anymore because now it's gotten down to I have a right to be well, they call it MAP. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but a minor attracted person We are now calling pedophiles minor attracted persons because they have a right to have those feelings, right?
Wait.
Careful. You okay there?
They call what now?
They're calling them minor attracted persons, or MAP for short.
So they're not a pedophile no more. They just attracted to
no,
minors.
This is just something that they just naturally, it's just a part of their nature, and they feel this, and they shouldn't be criminalized for their feelings.
So they're a minor attracted person. So then I should be a.
It makes that MAP and Dora the Explorer a little bit.
So then
suspect.
I should be what? WAP?
What?
Should I be WAP? Wife attracted person?
Yeah.
I mean,
but this is what we do. We change the language. We soften it up, right? Instead of saying the murder of the unborn, we say abortion provider, right?
right.
Right? Instead of saying that you are sinning against the natural law and against God by committing unspeakable acts of fornication and all of these things outside of the bounds of marriage, now you're just gay.
Right. But wait.
You're a happy little person, right?
I was in this restaurant today, and they was talking about, they came up to me and they said, so what do you think about abortion? Come on, tell us what you think about abortion.
Yeah.
And she should be able to do what she wants. I said, I don't care what she do with her body.
Yeah.
But what she's killing in is not her body.
Exactly.
And I said, and if she doesn't want to have a child, I got a great solution for her.
It's called
and
abstinence.
he said, and he was like, the man said, what's that? I said, stop having sex.
Mm-hmm.
Sex is designed to produce a child.
Yep. Even if it doesn't produce a child, that is what it is designed for, right?
Exactly.
You'll get the argument, well, not everybody can have babies. So that doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does, because that is exactly what God designed the sexual relationship for. It was to create, to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, right? So
yeah.
And you are having sex, you are running the risk of creating the product of that.
Exactly. And then I tell people, a virgin can never be a nymphomaniac. So stay pure. You ain't got to worry about it. But the thing about it is, we like you say, we take the words, we twist it around, we we cater to everybody's emotions.
Yeah.
So we was talking to the other day, was that yesterday? No, Wednesday. And I was telling people, times change, but God's word didn't change, and the Constitution didn't change.
No.
So you don't change that just because we're in the 21st century. If it was good in the first century, it should be good in the 21st century.
Yeah, exactly. And that's and we have to look at that again, because very few, so I know I've said this before, very few nations have had a long-lasting constitution. In fact, the only nation that has ever had a long-lasting constitution is America, because, and we've had it for 236 years now, because our Constitution was based on fundamental principles, immutable principles that do not change with the shifting of the times, with the whims of culture. Most constitutions are written based on who's in charge at that point and who has the power. We wrote our Constitution based on the fundamental principles that do not change, no matter which century, which era we are in. And so that is why it has lasted as long as it did. Now, we've obviously seen a lot of abuses against it, because now we no longer see the Constitution, on the whole, we no longer see the Constitution as the rule of law, the law of the land. But it doesn't change the fact that even if that Constitution, even if every copy of that Constitution went away and mysteriously disappeared under fiery circumstances, but mostly peaceful, of course, we would still have those foundational principles that should establish any human government on earth. And the only reason why we've succeeded as a nation for as long as we have is because we had people who respected and honored our higher moral authority, God, the creator God, and who respected the boundaries and the restraints of the Constitution on human nature. That was what it was there for. Yeah.
You know, and just to talk about, you know, I had a conversation with a young lady, and she was a lesbian,
Mm.
and I said, "Do you mind if I ask you a question?" She said, "No." I said, "It's personal." She said, "Come on." I said, "Why are you a lesbian? Did a man do something where you hate men's now?" And she says, "No, it was no drama. I mean, no trauma or nothing." I said,
Mhm.
"Okay, then what happened?" And she said, "It was the culture I grew up in.
Yep.
My mom was dating women.
Yep.
So I got caught up in that culture."
Yeah.
And you know, so but most church folks, when they see a homosexual or something, they want to pull out the pitchforks and the torches and everything instead of just finding out how
Yeah.
did they get there, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, it makes no sense. You got a man who want another man, but he want that man to act like a woman.
Mm.
And you got a woman who
Yeah.
want another woman, but she want her to act like a man.
Mhm.
That's you know, I tell people that's the spirit called lies. That
Yeah.
spirit of lies that have entrapped them,
Yeah.
you know, and so and like remember when Jesus was writing on the ground?
Mhm.
And everybody was like, but what did
But
he write? You
yeah.
know? And nobody really knew, but I took it as he wrote, "Where's the man?" You caught her in the very act.
Yeah.
So where is the man?
Wouldn't it have been even more interesting if he'd started writing the names of every man who'd been with her and they were all in the crowd looking at their names?
Somebody else said that too. And
Yeah.
that's why they put the stone down and walked away.
Yeah, because they knew that they were not guiltless, right? Yeah.
And that was like
And
this,
I would that have here's something, would that have had as much power if they did not understand how much power Jesus, the Son of God, had?
right,
Right? Because I mean, it could have been a friend of theirs writing their names in the dirt, right? But
right.
it was Jesus in the dirt with the prostitute writing down whatever it was, and if it was their names, that that would have been interesting, but whatever he was writing, they were affected by it because of the power of the one who was writing it,
Yes.
right?
And
And yeah.
there was this story. It was a true story of a small town. They had a young man on trial,
Mm.
and they called for a witness. This old lady. I love old people. I get there one day, but when I'm about 120, I get that in.
I'll be
But
old when I'm dead.
right, so they brought her on and they put her up there as a witness. So the attorney came up and he called her name and he says,
Mhm.
"Do you know?" And she pointed at the DA. Right? No, he pointed at himself first. "Do you know me?" And she said, "Yeah, I know you. You think you all of that in a bag of chips." And she says, "And you cheating on your wife." And so he said, so he got off of him. He said,
Yeah.
"Do you know the DA?" She said, "I know the DA too. He only got 2 suits, and you're cheating with his wife." And I mean, she started telling the business of everybody in the town.
Yeah.
So the judge called both of the lawyers to the bench and said, "If any one of y'all asks her, do she know me?" He said, "If any one of y'all asks her if she know me, you're going to jail." He was just he was letting them
Hilarious.
know. And the thing about it is this: when and the reason I brought up this small story
Mhm.
is because one of the biggest problems that we have is nobody wants accountability.
Yeah.
Nobody wants it. Everybody want us to, you know, don't hold me according to the Constitution, right?
Yeah.
Don't hold me to that. Let me live me. Let me be
Yeah.
me. And I have the right to be me. And okay, you have that right, but you should not have to make a law so you can feel good about that right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the thing that we look at now, and I found out a lot of lawyers have not read the Constitution.
No. No, in fact, you can be a constitutional lawyer without ever having read the Constitution from cover to cover and known it and understood it. You want to know how? They have constitutional law in as one of the courses that you can take as even a degree program in constitutional law, and they will pull out interpretations of what other people have said about the Constitution, and then they'll compare it with constitutions from around the world. And when you graduate from this course, you are now considered a constitutional lawyer because other people told you what was in the Constitution.
Right. And we got people right now in travel Wisconsin, call themselves teaching other people about the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Amber, you need to come on. Amber is on here now. Amber, you need to come on here.
Yes, Amber, you've got to come on and talk about private ministries, and you got to talk about how to protect our constitutional rights and stuff. I need my partner here.
I need to send you the link, Amber. You can't be in the background anymore. You have to join. You have to come on.
Yes.
But you know what I also found out? You can snuggle with the babies. That's fine.
Yeah.
That just let us know you're smart and human.
Very true.
But you know, we had people going around teaching what they thought was the Constitution,
Yep.
and they was giving out misinformation to people.
Yeah.
And that's why we had a lot of people during this election time confused because they were saying the Constitution and it really wasn't the Constitution. It was something that was interpreted and it was interpreted wrong, just like the Bible.
Yeah.
When you got people interpreting the Bible, and I say, my favorite line when I hear people misquote the Bible is, stop putting a clip in a revolver. It doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah, you know, it's interesting you're talking about this because did you know that it is actually a law that you when the week that the Constitution was ratified, you're supposed to, in every public education system, you are supposed to have I believe it's a week's worth of civic education. You're supposed to teach on the Constitution. Tell me how many schools actually follow that law?
Hold on.
I don't know the actual number, but I will tell you that most of the public schools, they'll have what they call their Constitution, but they usually label it as like civic education or something, and they'll talk about community service, and they'll do, you know, an art project on something that has to do with how can you better help your community. They don't actually teach the Constitution. And this from that to back in the 1800s, where it was a requirement that students learned by the time they were in 8th grade, they had to learn the Constitution backwards and forwards.
Now,
so we have fallen so far where we won't even complete a week's worth of education on the Constitution anymore. Whereas at one point we had kids who had memorized it.
Amber, I sent you an inbox. Look in your inbox, Amber. And you see what Rosie said, right?
Yes.
But here's the thing about it. That's why you got other people who's not called to the ministry doing wedding, because they went online and and I'm like, they have no real relationship with God. They standing there calling themselves representing God to do a wedding and don't understand.
They don't understand what marriage actually even is.
Right. And what is God really saying about a marriage, about a couple, about a husband, wife, the role of a husband, the role of a wife, you know, but they went online. I had a friend that told me he do marriages. I said, how are you doing marriages? He said, oh, I lost the bet, so I had to go online and get my license.
Oh, gosh.
And so, and the same thing with like you saying with the Constitution, they go online and go and listen to what somebody else say without going and do research themselves.
Yep.
Like, I give you a prime example. This is what we was talking about in the Republican office today in Milwaukee on Martin Luther King Drive. I just happened to stop in there to get on people's nerves. And it was fun. It was really fun. And so we got to talking, and I said, who signed the Civil Rights Act, right?
Yeah.
And they was like, LBJ. I'm like, okay. I said, but did you stop to think, how did it get to his desk to sign? Who passed it? And they thought about it, and they was like, I don't know who passed it.
Yeah.
I said, the Republican passed it, and it went to his desk, and he had to sign it because everybody was watching.
Yeah.
The world was watching, everybody was watching. So he had to sign it. But he said, I'm going to get y'all anyway. And that's when he did War on Poverty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, but people don't study. They just say, oh, he signed it. How did it get there?
Mm-hmm.
Just like a man said, Cavalier Johnson, the mayor of Milwaukee, said he don't have enough money to do what he needs to make, so he got to make some cuts.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, well, he don't have it. I said, hold up, bro. I said, you got to understand, he got the money. He don't want to spend it.
You don't want to spend it.
He want to spend it on something else.
Yeah.
So it's not that he got, I said, you got to learn to take city politics versus county politics versus state politics, then federal politics. But if you try to put them all in one, and then all they got to tell you is, well, the Republicans won't give us no money up in DC, so we can't do anything.
Yeah, and we're what are we doing for GDP? I'm trying to remember what it is, but they have money coming in through taxes and all of these other revenue streams in the trillions.
Yeah.
What are they doing with it? What do they have to show for it? Nothing. They have nothing. And
I know in Milwaukee, they hit us with every kind of tax.
Yeah.
A wheel tax and everything, but the streets is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not going to law enforcement. It's not going to moral training, right? It's not going to teach children how to behave like moral and upright citizens. It's not going to actual healthcare. We have bloated healthcare infrastructure, I guess you could, but our prices keep going up, right? And nobody knows how much it costs to go to the emergency room because they don't actually list that before you go in. So you have, what are they spending it on? I can tell you a couple of things that they spent it on a few years ago, or was it just last year? They spent it on, I might have said this last week. They spent it on a study to observe drunk ferrets, drunk rats, something running on a treadmill. Running on a treadmill.
Hey, watch this.
Why would they do that?
I know, right? Watch this. Ready for this?
Sure. Amber!
Hey.
Hi.
How's it going, guys?
Good. How's it going with you?
We got you.
Yeah, I scrambled and grabbed my laptop and got the kiddo watching a movie, so.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh.
I will admit, this is the first time I've used StreamYard, so I'm figuring out where all the things are. Stacy.
Well, we just glad you're here, and I'm going to let you two just go to work. I am going to be quiet. If I hear somebody make a comment or something that I don't like, I might push this.
Are you experiencing severe mental anguish?
And if you get a heckler, we'll do this to the heckler. And if we get somebody who really don't know what they're talking about, we'll just do this.
That's ominous.
Yep, just a little bit.
He's having way too much fun with his toys over there.
I know, right? So y'all go right ahead and feed the people. Go right ahead.
We're talking about lots of different things, Amber, but we were talking obviously about the right to keep and bear arms and why that's foundational for for the protection of every other right. If we lost the Constitution, obviously we wouldn't lose our rights, but it's a lot harder to defend them when we don't have when we don't have the law on our side. So yeah, we were just discussing that. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm so glad that you're doing this because you have hit home so many times that, like, even in our conversations, that, like, the Constitution doesn't give us our rights. That would be a privilege. It just protects and guarantees them.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were just talking founding fathers. We were talking about, how do we best defend ourselves? How do we fight back? Because this is a vicious cycle. We've got an immoral culture. We have the Congress following the whims of that immoral culture, and we don't have our standard there. So how do we fight back against this? And obviously education is one thing, but yeah. So
Yep, absolutely, exactly.
So I've shared several times on here about how about getting back into that private sphere and getting outside of the public sphere in certain areas because of this need to push back, right? To push back against a government that's overstepping its bounds, and how many rights we've I don't want to say lost because that's not the right way, but that we've given up freely because we just don't even understand that. So yeah, so I just maybe if you wanted to kind of go into that a little bit and just kind of touch on that for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I really like to go back to is, this whole civil rights movement is where a lot of this started happening. They realized that we knew too much about our rights and how to assert them, how to defend them. And we all know that knowledge is power. So without knowledge, we don't have power. That's when our civics classes started to go away. Like you just mentioned earlier, they stopped teaching us our constitutions and all of that. And that's something that I really like to address, is that, like, that's one of the big problems is, one of the easiest rights that we know how to enjoy is our right to privacy. That someone can't just go willy-nilly walk in your house and use your kitchen or sit at your kitchen table and join your conversation, even though we have these devices. And so helping people, just as kind of like, it's the easy entry into defending your freedoms, is taking back your protections of privacy. And with what I do with PMAs and being a PMA advisor is, I help people who have businesses or want to protect their kids' education, or who feel like they're led to pursue or fulfill their God-given purpose, and protect that in the private domain, and be able to do that outside of their jurisdiction, and do that in a way that's in alignment with their belief system, in alignment with their purpose, without having to ask permission. It's not about if you can do something anymore. It's a matter of how you can do something. So that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this, because since we can go to the private stuff. So because it's been coming out now how wrong the state has been doing, not only men but women, with child support, right? And so how does someone fight for their life? Because it's like they suck the life out of them when they do certain things, and nobody seems to know, because every man that goes through child support, or every woman that goes through it, are ignorant to the process. Okay. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, because I'm fighting one right now, right? My children was being raised by the grandmother, and I was paying kinship, but they were still making me pay child support to the mom. And the judge says, How do you guys got him paying both? You guys need to go fix it. Now that was years ago, and we're still waiting on them to fix it. But in the process of fixing it, the how should I say, the interest is steady growing until they can fix what they're doing.
Mm.
So how do a individual deal with their private rights, if I'm saying that right?
Yeah, that's a good one. And I will admit I'm sort of on the opposite side of things from what you're going through, and not necessarily with child support, but medical freedom. And current, because it is so current right now, I have to be really careful about how much I say and don't say. But I will say that you know, the system is not set up. I would say the system, if everyone's following the laws the way they're supposed to, the system itself is not bad. It's the players that are playing the game that is where it's messed up. And I'm learning myself. I'm in this course called How to Win in Court Without a Lawyer, and trying my best to learn how to defend my and my son's, medical freedoms, and at least get a fair chance instead of just, pushing such and such products, we'll say. And, looking at things in a more holistic way, like what influencing factors are impacting this that we should be considering, not just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah.
And so I definitely recognize where that's such a huge challenge and a huge problem. And that's where, like, when I'm advising people, like, I highly suggest that when you're starting a ministry, for instance, knowing that you as the minister of your ministry can perform ecclesiastical marriages instead of state marriage licenses, that's huge, because all 50 states recognize that as like a common law marriage, essentially. And that's one way that we can remove our kids right from the get-go a little bit out of that system, out of that jurisdiction, because a state marriage license is a 3-party contract between the married couple and the state.
Right.
And things like that.
So is that the one? I mean, the way that I took it is that you perform a marriage ceremony and you write their name in the Bible, in the family Bible, right?
Basically, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And that considered them married.
Yep.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
because the marriage ceremony institution was set up long before human government even got set into place.
Right.
And so it was God and Adam and Eve. They didn't have anybody else witnessing that, except maybe the animals in the garden. But so yeah. No, and this idea of, so even just when we're talking about, with talking about the child support system, the Department of Health and Human Services and all of this stuff, they get revenue from child support. So they're bringing in money. And so the idea that at one time, if a man or a woman was neglecting their family, they were held to account by the church, right? And so if a man was neglecting to take care of his family, the church would step in and say, you're going to take care of your family. If the man walked away, then the church would step in and take care of that family, right? And so again, this is one of those places where we've got to really ask ourselves, is this the jurisdiction of civil government, right? It's not. They were never supposed to be part of marriage and family. That was at most the church's responsibility to take care of the orphans and widows, right? And when they talk about widows, they're not just talking about people who've lost their husband to death. They've talk about women whose husband walked away, or just there's different elements of that. But this was an ecclesiastical issue.
Right.
And so, you know, when I was we just did the Department of Health and Human Services committee meeting, and they're talking about their yearly rundown of their finances, and they're talking about all these different ways that they've saved money by adding more staff and all, you know, like their placement costs are down and all of these things. And I'm thinking, but this isn't your responsibility. You know, they at one point the Department of Health and Human Services was just public health. And now they are in every single aspect of a human's life from birth to death.
And we let them do it.
And we let them do it. So yeah, so, you know, we really have given up our rights to privacy, even though they weren't really our rights to give up, because they were given to us by God. If you're, I mean, think about what a slap in the face that is for God. when we say, oh, here, you gave this to me at the cost of your, you know, your own efforts in your own life. You gave me these rights, and now here I'm just going to hand them over to a rather immoral government who says that they are going to decide whether or not I get them back, you know?
Right. And not only that, though, the way they got the system, like she said, the system probably ain't bad, but who's controlling it makes it terrible. But they got it where you can have a mother or a father that's in their child's life, just not living in a house, go to all the school activities, buy clothes, buy everything. And you know what they tell them? Oh, that's just a gift. And you're sitting there like, no, that's being a father taking care of his child, or that's a mother. Because mothers are going through it and their eyes is opening up. Oh my God, I got to go through this. Because they doesn't care. They just want to keep that money coming in because they're, you know, when do you put an interest on a human being? You know, so the more people we can educate, you know, because that's what I'm all about. And that's why we do these shows. And that's why we're going to steal you, Amber, because you need to really let people understand the private, what is it? The MAP?
PMA. So Private Membership Association.
No, MAP is minor attracted persons, remember?
We're not
talking about that.
but people need to know, because right now they open. They are open, but there's no real avenue. That's why I love doing this, and I see Sarah love doing it. And then people wait. You know, people call me on Tuesday because I didn't do my show Tuesday, and they're like, "Are you?" It was like, "Are you okay? You all right? You're not doing the show today. You know what's going on?" And I forgot to do think about it Tuesday because I was running around. And so right now we got young people, we got older people who are open and need this kind of information. So I want you guys, you know, to be able to just come in and hit it, because we need to talk to you, because you know we're opening up a school. So we want to make sure that that school is safe. And for those babies, because we cannot allow what's going on to keep going on, and all we doing is complaining and cussing out the TV. You know, we have to get involved, because who was that? James Madison talked about being ignorant.
Was it John? I think it was John Adams. You're talking about the quote that says that that the Constitution is only it only works for a moral and upright and well-educated citizenry. Is that the one?
Hold on, because I got that quote in my Bible. Okay. I mean, not my Bible, but my book.
Your book. It might have been. Was it one that I sent to you? I can't remember.
Yeah, the one you sent where he said.
Oh, then I should have it memorized. Oops.
Where he said
quotes from somebody.
I know. I've got so many going through my head. I'm like, nope. I'm mixing two of them.
Right. But he said, knowledge is forever governing ignorance.
Yes.
Right. So people, we are in this mess because of ignorance. We are ignorant to the things that they did not want us to know.
Yeah.
And by the way, I got to make a commercial. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all need to get this book right here. It's called Why It Is Important to Stay in the Middle from a Kingdom Perspective. It is very
Lift it up a
good.
little higher. It's being blocked. There you go. Oh,
Okay.
oh, there you go.
All right, let's see. There we go. So on tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock, we are having a book signing tomorrow, and we're going to take an hour and something to discuss it,
Cool.
break down all 4 chapters of it, because it needs to know. And what I've done, I gave the book to far left and far right, and I watched them just sit there and read it. And I like, oh man, I got both of their attention.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing when we start to open their mind to, and this is why you two, what I'm going to do is back off the screen, and I want y'all to give them 30 minutes of some powwow.
Gosh.
Just go at it. You know what? Act like y'all having a phone conversation.
Okay.
Don't even act like you got an audience. Just act like y'all having a phone conversation on this stuff, because people say you can't. You can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We're about to make them drink, because you guys are going to put a salt tablet in their mouth.
That's a good analogy.
So
I tried my grandpa's salt licks that he used to have out for the cows. It was clean, I promise, but I did that once when I was a kid. It was nasty. Never did it again. But I wanted to know, because he would make everything, all of his food, salty, and I could swear he probably just shaved off some of that salt lick. And
Oh, sir, I love you.
it's awful.
so I want you guys. I'm gonna jump off the screen, and I want you guys to go at it. All right.
All right. Okay, so I actually have a burning question. It's been sitting on my gut for a few weeks. Did you read? I think you might have been the one who posted it, about the Amish guy whose farm was like they'd raided his farm and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so did he actually have a private, like a 508 or something that was completely outside of jurisdiction? Because he ended up settling with the courts.
Oh, this is a really tough one to have live and recorded. Oh gosh.
Maybe if you can't see it, maybe we might have to talk about that one later. But this has been burning in my head forever.
The things I will say, okay, I'm going to say this, and you guys are going to have to read between the lines, okay?
That's good.
What I can say is that the founding documents were not from any of the people that, I work with, part of our organization.
Yeah.
So they were done differently.
Okay.
What I will say also is that it is vital to know who is helping you draft your documents to make sure that they are constitutional compliant, or also called non-statutory compliant.
Yeah.
It's also really important that you don't give away jurisdiction by doing things like letting people come in for inspections. Like, my family owns a motel that's now in our ministry, and because we're no longer open for public accommodation, I got to tell the fire inspector, we're no longer open for public accommodation. We're private accommodation only. He's like, oh, you guys are closed. And I repeated the same thing.
Yep.
That's where they get you. We're no longer open for public accommodation. So your service is no longer needed.
Yeah.
And he just said, oh, okay. Did something on his piece of paper and left. Have not seen him in probably almost 2 years now.
Okay.
And no issues. So that's something else too, is don't voluntarily give away jurisdiction.
Yeah.
The last thing is, before signing anything, always ask questions and know what it is you're signing.
Yep.
You don't want to be voluntarily signing away subject matter jurisdiction and things like that. So hopefully you guys can read between the lines on what that implies, because I don't have documentation to back up those things. So I'm saying it from like a lessons kind of perspective.
Yeah.
So so those are the big things, is don't give away jurisdiction, make sure you are constitutionally protected, and start learning, your true rights and liberties and how to assert them.
Yeah.
Whether that's, first and foremost, reading your state and US constitutions.
Yeah.
If you feel like you need to take the How to Win in Court Without a Lawyer course, like I do have an affiliate link, and I'm working through the course myself, and it's just so profound. It takes the legal system from being this big scary monster under the bed, all the unknowns,
Yeah.
to still being intimidating, still being the bully, but at least you know kind of the main components that they're using and how to use them yourself too.
Okay.
So yeah,
Awesome.
sorry I couldn't answer that
No,
one more directly,
no,
but I
that's
think that covers it.
Yeah, for sure. And really I'm just asking questions, hoping that people who are pursuing this course will understand a little bit more of how it works and stuff. So in that same line, how do you deal with, say, CPS coming to your door after you've, got maybe a private educational association, right? And you are homeschooling your children in the home. And what happens if CPS is called by a disgruntled neighbor who doesn't like that your kids are out, in the middle of the day playing in the yard and doing yard work? What do you do if that happens?
Yeah. So the first thing that we usually suggest when you're starting this is submitting a letter of notice to, and in Wisconsin, like every state's a little bit different, and I work with people from all 50 states. So it's hard for me to remember like the exact steps for every state. So I say this in a general sense. But basically, the same people you would notify that you're homeschooling is the same people you would send this letter of notice to. And really, all that letter is saying is, I, Jane Doe, am choosing to take back responsibility to oversee and direct my child or children, and then insert their names, education. Thank you for fulfilling your obligation to provide this service, but your services are no longer needed. Essentially, opting out of their system.
Okay.
And that goes back to your constitutional rights. So that's the first thing we suggest. It's not a mandatory step, and you can do it in a reactionary way with an affidavit.
Okay.
So it's not bad or wrong if you don't do it, but you're likely to avoid less issues with truancy.
Yeah.
If you do it proactively. At least that's what we're finding. If someone comes knocking on your door, I mean, I'm not a legal representative. This is just educational purposes. Again,
Yep.
but know your rights. You do not have to let anybody in your door. If someone's knocking, you come out of your home and you close that door behind you and you talk to them. If they do not have a warrant, they are trespassing, and you can request that they leave your property. And without enough evidence, they can't get a warrant.
Yeah.
Unless you give them that evidence. So that's why you don't want them to come into your home. You can be firm and still respectful.
Yeah.
Chris Ann Hall is a powerhouse. She has a document that is on trespassing, and she has kind of like this whole script. We have it as one of our documents that we share with our PMA community. And even people who don't have a PMA, I highly recommend getting that document and printing it, laminating it, putting it in a sheet protector, whatever, and just sticking it by your door, or in a drawer right next to the door, and have all of the adults that you delegate authority to open that door for you to know where it is and to be able to read it and do what it says.
Cool.
Cool. Can they come in with a warrant if you have a PMA? The big thing is they should not be getting enough information and evidence to get a warrant if you have a PMA, unless you have a member that is wrongfully in violating your member application and your member agreement and sharing that information, which then becomes a violation of your membership agreement. Right. So they should not even be getting a warrant. Really, the exception to the whole PMA protection, the private domain protection, is if there's a clear and present danger of substantive evil. And the courts have already determined what that means in more layman's terms, more modern terms. And that's an immediate and imminent risk of death or harm, not a fraction of a percentage of a chance of maybe dying from something.
Right. Like if I drink raw milk, I could get sick, but I could also not.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, immediate and imminent. That's like it's gonna happen.
Like they put cyanide in the raw milk.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like you will get sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it literally has to be on the level of like the Waco, Texas poisoned Kool-Aid drinking cult level
Yeah.
serious to really qualify for that clear and present danger.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
right, Stacey, I totally get that. Do we trust that process?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like what's been happening with online, I try to censor myself so I don't get in trouble. So with certain leaders in our movement having, you know, phones taken and things like that, with,
Mhm.
you know, people with pew pew machines, I'm not gonna fight that. I will probably give my phone.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause I like my life. I don't want to die.
Yeah.
I'd rather live to fight another day kind of thing. So
Yeah.
right, we know that there's corruption,
Yeah.
and you have to, you know, you have to know where your line is, where you're asserting your rights
Yeah.
versus literally protecting your life.
Yeah, and the lives of your family too, because think of
Yeah.
that, if they're coming at your door in with the, what did you call them? Pew pew machines? In full battle gear, yeah, it's a little bit different than one intruder who's trying to steal your TV.
Right, or just a
Yeah.
three-letter organization representative, an
Yeah.
agent, you know.
Yeah,
But
and this is like you said, we have to be wise and discerning. How do we deal with different situations? Because our system has gone so corrupt that there are levels that we can't fight yet because of the fact that we don't have those resources, right? We don't have a fully organized militia in our community. We have a few people who are carrying guns around because they're mad, right? So
I'm one of
when
those.
yeah. When it comes to that, because if it continues down this path with the constant corruption and the increase in government, when it comes to that, we're going to have to unfortunately step up and take that measure. And it might be our children or our grandchildren who are dealing with this, right? But what we're saying with like things like a PMA, with things like you know, homeschooling our children, with, you know, medical freedom and rallies and petitioning the government for a redress of grievances, those are things that we can do in our own communities. We actually have some hopefully soon some resolutions coming down in our community dealing with election reform and how to keep certain finances out of the election system, right? And so these are issues that we can address in our communities on smaller levels, because the more communities we get doing this, the less the government will be able to fight back. But yeah, we have gone so far into the giving away our freedoms that it's not a wise thing to not let the guys with pew pew machines come in if they're because yes,
Right.
we do have to balance that with, are we going to protect our children and our own lives
Right.
by stepping back? But yeah, but in the case of, you know, a CPS agent
Right.
who is not carrying, as far as we know, we
Yeah,
can tell them, butt out, you're trespassing, right?
Right. But you know, the problem with that is this. We know we have to use wisdom
Mm-hmm.
on everything that we do.
Yeah.
And we know we got to play chess and not checkers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we got people that want to play checkers and they want to go straight to war.
Yep.
And I asked one, what about your kids? Because if
Yeah.
you are one of the main ones, you're the first target.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
are
and
you,
who's taking care of your kids in the next generation if you're in jail?
or if they just
Or
come
worse.
in,
Or if they just come in and kill you? Yeah.
all of a sudden you have a surprise gas leak,
Yeah.
or a car accident.
Yeah.
I mean, people is not paying attention to the things like you say. If we do local first,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Then what happens is, see, we got to stop trying, you know, because for a long time they taught us, don't focus on the local elections, don't focus on local, just
Yeah.
focus on the presidential election, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
thing that does not even impact our daily lives.
Right.
Right. So now we saying that, and they're saying oh my God, I think they're getting it. Why? Because now their bonds are being sued, and
Mhm.
they be like, oh my God, they really are
Yeah.
waking up on this thing. And so we need, well, besides good sheriffs, we need the people to be empowered so they'll know how.
Yes.
Because if we're hitting them from all sides, right?
Yeah.
Then they can't do anything because they too busy running around trying to put out every fire.
Because what is that doing? That's cutting off their power. If we start cutting out their power, if we start cutting back in our local communities, we're taking the power that they think they have, right?
Right.
Because right now we've been saying all along, oh yeah, you've got this power. They don't have that, but we've given this illusion that they do. And if we start taking that back, just think about it when we're talking about the people who are ready to run out their guns blazing.
Chapter 2.
When we're ready to run
The
out there with
hidden
our guns
power of the
blazing,
people.
exactly. But when we're running out there with our guns blazing and ready to just take down, like
Right.
you do a storming of the Capitol, and we're not doing that, right? If that's our mindset, we have to remember, think about the cost of what that if we're not thinking through the cost of that. Every signer of the Declaration of Independence was immediately targeted as a traitor to the British Crown. Many of them lost their lives. Many of their families lost their lives and lost their finances. When they said, "We pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor," they knew what that meant. They counted
They knew
that
the
cost.
cost.
And
Yep.
so they knew, their families knew, everybody involved who needed to be involved in that decision understood, and they were willing to take that risk, right? So when we have, like I said, when we have people guns blazing right now, are we really counting that cost? Have we sat down and talked to our families and said, hey, this might happen. If I step into this position, I'm going to have a target on our backs, not just mine. It's not about just me. I'm going to have a target on our backs. And are you guys willing to go this route, right?
Look at the 60s when they said, okay, we're gonna do this. They was targeted.
Yeah.
Their house got bonfired. The church got bonfired. They sicked the dogs on them, and there was kids out there walking with them that they were sicking the dogs and in the fire holes, and they didn't like you. You became a threat. So you're a threat to my party. So guess what? I gotta get rid of you. And people don't look at that. They just want to be out there to make a name for themselves, but they really making themselves a target.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between what the Americans did in 1776, that sort of revolutionary, and this idea that we just need to, pick up arms and go out and defend our freedoms. That is not the best way to work. There is something to be said for the fact that our Constitution has survived, in spite of all of the abuses, has survived for 236 years. So let's utilize the resources we have. Let's educate, let's understand, and then get back into slowly, because this is not going to be an overnight fix. Even if we went to war, God forbid, it wouldn't be overnight. We wouldn't suddenly have our government back, the next
because
day.
not enough people know what it's supposed to look like and how it's supposed to function. And that's exactly like, oh, Sarah, I wish I could have connected a lot more recently, but that's what I advocate for. Like, my background is in relational communication studies and a minor in mediation. And for me, when I see people get just so aggravated and angry, like that whole flies with vinegar or honey, it's like, you are not going to get anybody to listen to a word you say with aggression and anger. You have to meet them at where they're at and then help them come to where you're at. You can't talk down to them. You have to, level with them.
Yeah. And think of those types of people. What do? They actually turn away the people who could be the voice of reason, who could make those changes, because they're the ones, the loudest voice yelling and screaming in people's ears. They're not getting anything done. In fact, they're damaging the movement towards liberty. So this idea that we have we have this right, or we have this right to defend our freedoms. Yes, but what about the responsibility that goes with it?
Yeah.
How are we going to be
Discernment
morally
and
upright?
wisdom.
How are we going to use discernment and wisdom? And how are we going to be able to best? Yes, because we will be targeted. There will be people who target us. But can we mitigate some of that by not going out guns blazing? Because like all of the founders said, it is a last resort, not the first one. And you know what? It took us 100 years to get here. So it might take, another 10, 15, 20, even
To turn
100
it
years to get out,
Right. Yep.
And wouldn't it be better if we governed by reason and reflection rather than by accident and force?
Well, see, here's the thing about it, and like you say, nobody really count the cost. They running around and they want to do so much, and then they like, why so and so don't like me, or or they want to play the victim role. Listen, if you're gonna be bad, be bad. Quit crying and trying to be a victim. I can't stand those kind of people.
Yeah.
You wanna fight, but then when it's like Japan, they drop a bomb and we drop one back. Now we the bad guy because we dropped one back.
Yeah.
So stop
Sounds
talking
like
about
me and my brother fighting when we were kids.
right.
Hiroshima.
Please.
our rooms, our limbs didn't survive very long in those.
I know, and there was 6 boys in our house, so it was gang fights after gang fights.
Yeah. I was
but-
firstborn, so when I realized when to step down when my brothers got big enough to take me down. So yeah, I had to concede the field. But yeah, this is what the point I was trying to get to. When we go in guns blazing, right now, especially in the culture that we're in, we are going to leave a vacuum behind. And
Yes.
guess what fills that vacuum? More tyranny. Because we're not going to have leaders who are ready to step up and take the country back and guide us into a more freedom path, a freedom shift. We're going to have leaders who are going to take full advantage of the fact there is an opening. And guess what? They like that power. So we're going to be even worse if we.
And that's why we
take
need
that
to
path.
start grassroots locally so that
Yep.
we can like raise this generation of leaders who are who are able to be elected into these positions here, so we can get them up there, but they're not ready for up there yet.
Right.
Yeah.
But see,
Rustin, your point is incorrect, because there are different ways to fight, and it does not always come at the end of a gun. We're not giving up by fighting wisely and with discernment. We are.
But wait, Sarah. Let's give it to them this way.
Go ahead.
They did not take the rights away or get us in this mess we're in with blazing guns.
No.
They came in smooth,
Mm-hmm.
Sweet talking,
Yep.
educating them with lies,
Yep.
and that's how they took it over.
Yeah.
They didn't come out blazing like,
Marketing.
okay, we finna shoot everybody that don't agree with us. No,
Yeah.
they went in smooth. They didn't talk down to the people. They met the people where they at.
Yep.
And I tell people all the time, don't nobody care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
if you got a mother who's struggling and I take her some bread and some meat and some rice, and I do that a couple of times and don't want nothing in return.
Yeah.
But guess what's going to happen? Sooner or later, she's going to say, why are you so nice? And then I'm going to be able to fill her with lies.
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so here's something. This is an interesting. So was it Stalin or Lenin? I think it was Stalin, was being interviewed once, and he was asked, how do you get millions of people to just follow you blindly, right? I mean, how is this possible? You're cruel, you have gulags, you have all of this stuff, and that you're killing your own people, right? And he took a chicken in his arms and he started plucking the feathers. And he plucked off the feathers until this chicken was bare. It was an alive chicken. He plucked off the feathers and then he dropped it on the floor and let it wander around. And this poor dazed chicken came back to him when he held out food.
Yeah.
So he was saying, if you feed them, if you give them just enough, they will come back to you time and time again. because that is what they're looking for. That is all that they care
Sounds
about.
like a typical job.
Yeah.
Pay them just enough that they don't quit,
Yep.
and not enough for them to actually survive or thrive.
Right.
Exactly. And I said, you know how you catch wild hogs?
Yes.
You take food and you just put it in this one spot, and you
Yep.
keep putting it there in this one spot.
Yep.
And then you start to build half the fence.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And they're not even paying the fence no attention.
Nope.
Because they know that food gonna be right there. So
Yep.
they keep going to the food and they keep going to the food. Now you done built the other half of the fence. They still ain't paying attention to the fence, and they just coming in, and finally you close the gate.
Yep.
Exactly.
It works for every single any conditioning, every single animal, and it's really sad that we humans who are not animals are so easily led like that. You know, like I was reading. So this is a little bit funny. So my dog, we found out, had fleas, so we're treating it and trying to get rid of them. But I was reading about how to control fleas, and this article pops up about how they train circus fleas. And me, being the silly researcher that I am, decided to read it. So I found out that the way that they catch them in a glass, like a little glass jar, and these fleas jump, right? So they put a lid on it.
Oh, I know this one. Yes.
And these fleas will jump up against that lid, and they'll jump and jump and jump for quite a while, and then all of a sudden you notice they stop jumping. If you take that lid off after they stop jumping, they will never ever jump out of that container ever.
Yep.
That's how you
Or
train
there's a variation of that where
Yep.
they only jump just high enough that they don't hit the lid.
Yes.
Yep.
And then where the next generation is born, the next generation doesn't realize their full potential because they've only seen
Yep.
their parents jump this high.
Yep.
Exactly.
And then that sets the whole generational curse basically of,
Yes.
that limit, that boundary.
Yep.
Yep.
And so
Yep,
we've
and-
had 100 years of generations who have taught their children that go this far and no further, except that they can regulate our how much water's in our toilets and our light bulbs, and that's okay. They're not actually, they accept property taxes because it's giving. We're taking care of roads and schools and all of those things. We've had generation after generation educating the next that
Yep.
this is the way it's always been and this is the way it's always going to be. And we need to change that. We need to shift that.
But in Milwaukee, they talk about the Black community being a bucket of crabs, right? Always pulling each other down.
Yep.
Right? So I said, you know why that happens? They said, no. I said, first of all, they put one crab in there. And that crab tried his best to get out. And he couldn't get out.
Yep.
So when they put the second crab in there, it was trying to get out. He said, nope, I tried it already.
Yep.
Nope, I tried it. Never said, let's come together and we both can get out. He
We'll
was like,
form a chain. Yeah.
yeah. He was like, nope, I tried that already. I tried it. So guess what? That's another generation saying, don't do anything because we tried it already.
Yeah,
right?
it's why it sticks in my craw every time I hear a parent say they're sending their children to public school to be missionaries. It's like, do you realize your children are not trained to be missionaries, especially if they're spending 8 to 10 hours away from you, not learning the scriptures and being indoctrinated with whatever the public schools decided they're going to teach. And they're going in there, they have no preparation, they have no ability to stand against their peers and their teachers who you've
it's not really a kid's job to be doing that.
You told them the teachers and their peers are the ones they're supposed to hang out with and the ones they're supposed to trust, and then you wonder why they're walking away from God.
But that's why my saying, if you keep sending your kids to Caesar, stop getting mad when they come home a Roman.
Yep.
Because we're doing it, and it's like this. One of the things the Black community has to break is the slave mentality. And what I mean by that, they was taught as slaves to be seen and not heard.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So what we learned coming up, our parents told us, be seen and not heard. You're not allowed to speak.
Yeah.
So
I still meet people in certain circles of the movement who still act like that even about women. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not a woman who's just gonna sit there and look
Yeah.
pretty.
Barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, right?
Like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's not me. That wasn't my mama either.
But you know, these are the things we up against. We're not up against a person. I mean, a group of people. We're up against a system or the mindset of people who's been lied to for so long.
Yeah.
And one generation after another generation after another generation, then to the fact that they say, okay, now we got enough generations that don't mind, because what do the generations say? It doesn't hurt nobody. They never studied Halloween to see that it was the celebration of the spirit of the dead, a festival of the dead. They never really studied, and they say, well, it ain't hurt nobody. But you don't realize that Ouija board that you guys pull out and all that other stuff that comes with it, going in the bathroom, closing the door, turning off the lights, talking about Rosemary baby or whatever they say with that thing.
Bloody Mary. It was Bloody Mary.
So, but they don't realize that they're opening themselves up, because to them, it didn't harm nobody. We went from Casper the Friendly Ghost to Bewitched. Now we got Harry Potter and the rest of it, all that other stuff that people are chanting and they doing things. And then you got them going to psychics and all this other stuff and reading horoscopes. And they trying to live out those horoscopes and things. So now you're saying, okay, God want to be your God, and he want to help you out, and he wants you to have a better life and a better family and a better this. And they looking at you like, what?
Yeah.
I thought all we had to do. I mean, look, we grew up with Santa Claus. Come on now. Santa Claus, who's supposed to be able to get all over the world in a night. And we believed that crap. then we was told to go to bed because he got to come down the chimney. We didn't even have a fireplace. But
haven't you watched the Santa Claus with Tim Allen? The fireplace just kind of slowly appears, and he's able. Yeah.
I do like that movie.
I love that movie.
But when we see that stuff, right?
Yeah.
You sitting there like, scientifically, we know a rabbit can't lay an egg. Mm-hmm. But we go along with this crap.
Yeah.
And now you got kids relating an egg with a bun, and you wonder why they confused.
Yeah. Well, and we miss the origins of these traditions and things too, because a lot of them the origins, maybe not rabbits laying eggs, but the origins of the egg had to do with new life and new growth and all of these things, and had very biblical principles. If we're not understanding our history, we are missing out on the story. It's why it's like hearing a pastor say, well, you don't need to understand the original Hebrew and Greek and the cultures of the Bible times in order to understand the message that was sent. Okay, that partly that is true, because you can still get a lot out of the Bible, but if you don't understand the context of it, if you don't understand the context of it, then you miss a whole heck of a lot. When God says, I am the gate, I am the good shepherd, right? Or when he says, I am the gate, do you even know what that means? Because in Bible times, the shepherds would build these little low walls to protect sheep out in the fields from predators. There was one opening in that wall, and the shepherd would sit in that opening to protect his sheep.
Right.
It was the one opening that the sheep could just barely squeeze through, and that's where he would. So when Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, I am the gate, or I am the door, they would have understood that concept. Oh, he's saying he's the shepherd that sits in that door and protects and guards his sheep.
Right.
But we miss that. So we get maybe
it sounds like an arbitrary kind of
it's like
of weird,
or like, reading the Song of Songs, and you're like, why would any woman want to be told that her teeth were like a flock of sheep, right? But if you get if you get the cultural significance of the poetic nature of that back then, a woman back then would have been like, "Whoa, I'm suddenly pretty warm here."
Right. You know,
So this is what I'm saying. When we're missing the history, when we miss
right.
the original
Richard,
intent, the origin of our stories, we miss so much of the context that made us what we are today. That has so much more meaning and so many more foundational principles in our Creator God.
Well, that's just like Steve Harvey. He made a statement that when he was little, he heard in church, it's hard for a rich man to go to heaven than a camel to go through an eye of a needle. So for a long time in his life, he was trying to figure out how I'm gonna get a camel through a needle. Because they never took time to bring out the original. And when he got grown, he found out what it means is that's an actual gateway where they come in, and you had to unload the camel so it can go through, and then you load it back up because all that stuff couldn't go through. So when he finally found out the original, he was like, "Oh my God, I thought I was gonna go to hell because I didn't know how to put a camel through the eye of a needle." You know, so when we look at the original, I mean, when you go back and understand, and that's why the Bible says wisdom is the principal thing, but therefore get wisdom. But with all I getting, get understanding. Because you know, and I tell people when we look at what we're going through today, and this is one of the reasons I gotta bring I'm gonna bring the book again. Pull up the book. Boom. But this is one of the reasons is because if you claim to be with God, you can't be loyal to any party because both parties challenge you to either stand down, compromise what you believe. Okay. We have seen through this whole campaign stuff, we have watched people who was Democrats and found out their leader was a Republican or a conservative, and they left churches because of those kind of things. And you're sitting there like, I thought you was here for Jesus, not Democrat. You know, or not Republican. And then so because we don't have understanding, and you know, understanding means I comprehend what you're saying. Understanding means I got it, right? And so when I was a kid, my mom used to tell us all the time. I could tell y'all some kids' stories. Y'all might pee on yourself if I told y'all some of the stories I had when I was coming up. But she told us, don't go to bed without washing them dishes. And we didn't comprehend what she was saying. And we would go to bed without washing dishes. And she would wake us up with a belt.
Ouch.
And we would get a whooping and then had to go in there and wash them dishes. Because when she told us, we didn't comprehend that she meant right now. We just took it as, okay, I got to get those dishes done. And I get them done when I want to get them done.
On my terms, right?
On my terms. And that's what they're doing with the Constitution. That's what they're doing with the Bible. They're taking it on their term instead of for what it really says.
It's why we hear so many people on both sides say that the Constitution is a living document, right? It's fluid. It moves with the whims of culture and with how the people in power. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
And the more that people get to understand the Constitution, and the more that people understand the original intent of what it was meant for, right? Like the last time we talked, all of those scriptures that came out of the Constitution, folks was like, I didn't know that. Why? Because they didn't tell you that in school. You had to dive in deeper and understand why the founding fathers did what they did. Now, did they get everything right? No, they didn't. But they was on the right path.
And not only that, they were going from the knowledge and the wisdom of understanding human nature and understanding they weren't going to get everything right. They understood it is not perfect. Benjamin Franklin even said, "I'm going to sign this, but I don't think it's perfect." But it's as good as it's going to humanly get. And
Yeah, I mean, they were pulling from over 700 years worth of history from before the Magna Carta
oh yeah,
all the way through. So they knew their history and they
Yep.
did the best they could with what they had. And that's all we ever can do.
yep,
But that reminds me of the example of, oh gosh, I'm not going to get the right president. James Madison, John Adams. I don't remember which one. But so many people like kind of give him crap for not, freeing his slaves upon his death. It's like, if you knew that in his state it was not lawful
That
to
was Thomas
do that
Jefferson.
yet. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. I knew you would know.
Oh yeah, that was
like,
Thomas Jefferson. Yep.
He did the best he could with what he had.
Yeah.
It was not permitted in his state for him to do that.
Yep.
So he couldn't.
Well, and he even got into government in Virginia so that he could fight against that. But there were too many detractors, and he was only one man, right? And so, but in the process of that, what did he do? He paid his slaves for at the cost of his own financial security. He paid his slaves for services rendered. Right. He did what he could do within that time frame, and he was a man ahead of his time. But we only see him based on the slander written about and discussed by people who were his detractors, who didn't like him, who were threatened by him. And so all we get is the story, oh, he impregnated his slaves, he raped her. No, he didn't. There is no evidence whatsoever. There's no DNA evidence. And now Monticello is giving tours talking about Sally Hemings and making movies about it when it never happened. Yeah. So
well,
things,
that's just like hold on. Rewind it. Because while you was talking, it was in my head, right? Okay. So that's just like Juneteenth Day, right? They celebrate Juneteenth Day, right? But they celebrate it incorrectly. Because they're celebrating, oh, that's when they freed the slaves. No. That's when Texas finally got the message that the slave been free. But it took 2 years to get to Texas.
Yeah.
And so when people talk about it, well, dude, that's when they got to Texas, but it took them 2 years after they was free to get the message to Texas. Now, why did it take 2 years? I know who had the message wasn't walking there.
Yeah. Well, because of this. Technically, if you think about it, when the Declaration was written, every human being in America should have been free that day. Yeah. Right. But because of human nature and man's corruption, there was only so much they could do constitutionally to enforce that, because they had restrained their government from interfering in the lives, the personal and private people.
Their privacy.
So in thinking through that, they formatted the Constitution and they formatted the Declaration in such a way that it would the logical outworking of it was all men are created equal, endowed by their creator. And when I'm saying man, I mean mankind, endowed by their creator with
thank you
rights, right? And so that was the promissory note, right? It took a civil war, it took Civil Rights Act and all of these other things to get to that point,
to make it happen
lawfully. But when you go back, if you go back to the Declaration of Independence, that was the statement of intent. That was the declaration stating every human being has the right to be free. It takes us a little bit longer because we're thick-skulled and hard-headed.
And because we didn't have social media. And because we didn't have social media too.
Or just the internet in general. Like, everything we're talking about, I will admit, I knew virtually nothing of it 3 years ago. Virtually nothing. I will be totally honest. And I have never, tried to hide that. And that's where, like, Sarah and I actually, I think we first really met going to those Constitution classes.
Yep.
And so, Kristen Hall's Liberty First Society. And that also then got me started reading David Barton's Original Intent book. And then I found this audio series, and I was actually going to pull it up on my phone. On I think it was on Audible, but about like it's called I think it's American Elections Wicked Games, and it's not. I will say it's not the very best in the full scope of the truth of what's happened,
Okay.
but it ain't bad.
Yeah.
For
Right.
something geared more toward adults and just like a really quick overview and a podcast on each election,
Mhm.
it wasn't bad. Like I know that it was not as truthful as it should have been on Lincoln, for instance,
Yeah.
and his stance on things. But little things like that, the more we can just drop these easy access resources for people
Yeah.
to start just pouring into them, cost effective and easy things that they can listen to on their drive or whatever,
Yeah.
because that's how we start to take back, you know,
Yes.
all this stuff. Like I share about oh, it's getting late, my brain's just fried. Who was the one that was like the first one to die in like the Boston Tea Party, and he was like a black freeman?
Oh gosh.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I'm just like, that kind of stuff is
Yeah.
what we need to be knowing. Like,
Hold
What is
on.
his name? Hold on. Now you're gonna now I have to. Okay, you got me going now.
Please look it up because I ain't gonna be able to go to sleep.
Crispus. Yep, Crispus Atticus. Is that what it was?
Oh gosh.
Yep, that's what Stacy Lynn is saying.
Okay.
All right,
Okay,
Stacy.
that was-
Thank you,
That was the
Stacy.
name I had in my head, but I couldn't remember if it was that dude or this other dude that I'm also
Right.
thinking of. But those. Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Let me tell you what we did. We took David Barton's American History in Black and White.
Yep.
Pastors and Christians in Civil Government, right?
Yeah.
We passed out thousands in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Thousands. I even took my son's school for Black History, and I gave them all those DVDs.
Awesome.
And the thing about it is, that's truth is challenging to accept.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you hear people, they talk about the founding era as this general overview. Everybody abused their wives. Everybody kept slaves, right? When it wasn't even a third of the nation kept slaves. It was a tiny little percentage. Now, does that make slavery wrong or good? No, of course not. But we don't paint everybody with the same black brush, right? Abigail Adams and John Adams had one of the most beautiful love stories, and she was completely illiterate when they met, and she educated herself and became one of his greatest supporters and an intelligent companion. I mean, they were literally one flesh because they were so together on everything, even when they disagreed, you know. Does anybody know there were actually women ministers preaching in the Capitol building after Thomas Jefferson started church services there in the 1800s?
Right.
Women ministers.
and not only women ministers, but black ministers.
But black ministers, yes. So there were black pastors who pastored all white congregations and vice versa, right? So
don't you tell these people that.
Well, and even before that, like I used to watch the History Channel with my dad all the time, and we know, I mean, the History Channel even says that there are ancient churches that have been dug up that women were the major benefactors of those churches.
Yep.
They were the funders that created and established those churches and all of this stuff. It's like, this is not even just a couple centuries old. This is thousands of years old at this point.
I mean,
wait a minute. Are y'all trying to tell me women was not barefooted, pregnant, and in the kitchen?
And a zipper around their lips the whole time? Yeah, right?
No, it was like, but of course, you know, even today when we talk about, you know, those evil homeschoolers, right? They pick out one case in millions of the homeschool family who locked their kids in a basement, right? It's like, really? Are you kidding me? We do not paint everybody with the same black brush. The only thing that we have that every human being is cursed with is a sin nature, right? So we have this human nature that needs a God to redeem and restore it.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we have in common as far as the idea of being able to paint everybody with a broad brush. We are human beings created in the image of God with the sin nature because he gave us free choice, and he's the only one who can redeem and restore us.
And the thing about it is that we know that we got a lot of work before we get the pistols. We got a lot of work.
We do.
And I love it because my mission right now is to reform. You ever saw the TV show Flip That House?
Yes. Yep.
I'm in the process of trying to flip Milwaukee now.
Yeah.
And so it's about educating and empowering people. And so I was at the Republican office, and I said to the people, because they got to talk about slavery, I said, well, let me ask y'all a question. Did y'all know that there was black slave owners?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
And they was like, what? I said, and they was breeders. They said breeders. I said, you know how people breed pit bulls and sell the dogs?
Oh, yeah.
And they said, yeah. I said, well, he was one of the worst slave masters because he treated his people wrong. Yeah. But he breeded them and sold their babies. And matter of fact, he was one of the richest men in his territory.
Yeah. Yeah. We could go even further back in America's history. You hear about all of the evil things that Christopher Columbus did, right? Oh, this evil white guy. You know, there were two tribes, right? He apparently murdered and enslaved all of these tribes or all of these Indians, and he, stole their gold and all of this stuff. Okay. There were two tribes. There was the Taino tribe and there were the Caribs. The Caribs were actually cannibals who imprisoned Taino women, raped them, gave them children, and then took their children to eat because the young ones were the most tender and tasty. So the Tainos came to Christopher Columbus and said, please help us. We have no power over these people. They are too big, too strong, and they keep taking our women and children and eating them. And so Christopher Columbus went in and destroyed the Carib tribe. And then we Americans named the islands after the tribe that murdered and ate another tribe. We should have named the Caribbean islands the Taino Islands because we would have been a lot more historically accurate. But these are the things. Christopher Columbus had a deep, abiding love for God. You want to know why he wanted that gold? Because the Muslims had been crusading in Europe and had taken over Europe and destroyed all of the Christian places. 500 Muslim crusades. We complain about the 12 Christian white crusades. That were developed to take back those Christian places. So this is what history is all about, learning about the truth and going in and seeing what we're missing and not putting our 21st century bias over people like Thomas Jefferson or the Crusades.
But if we do this and you ask the people, what is the largest language in the world? And everybody will say English, but it's not. Spanish is, because Spain was the greatest colonizers out here. Mm-hmm. They went everywhere. They went everywhere. And people don't even know, most people don't even know it was Spain who funded Christopher Columbus crusade when he came here.
Isabel and Ferdinand, yep.
Yeah. And so they looking like, oh, really? I mean, if we don't know the simple stuff, and if I keep the simple stuff away from you, and I'll give you a prime example. There was a husband, and his wife was cooking Thanksgiving. And what ended up happening was he noticed she cut both ends of the ham.
Oh, I know this story.
And she put the ham in the pan.
Yep.
And he was like, honey, why you do that?
Yeah.
Because mama did it.
Yeah.
So he went to his mother-in-law. Mom, why did you cut the ends of your ham? She said, because grandma did it. Yep. So he goes to grandma. Grandma, why do you cut the ends of your ham? She said, because Big Mama did it. So he went to Big Mama. Big Mama, why do you cut the ends of your ham? And Big Mama said, because my pan was too small.
Yeah. Yep.
So nobody else understood why they did a thing.
But they just did it.
They just did it.
Yeah.
And we never ask why.
Yeah.
That's where my rebel with the cause spirit comes in, because I will not say someone else made a comment about Mary Poppins. I make that comment all the time that, like, I'm not Mary Poppins. I do not claim to be perfect. I still watch Disney. I will admit it's a guilty pleasure of mine. I still do it. But like, there are still so many things that I recognize as, why are we doing this? It ain't that, like, why?
Yeah.
Or like, why do I have to fold my towel? Even just something, a really basic example for someone, like, for people to recognize, like, why do you have to fold your towels a certain way? It's not like it's hurting it or hurting you if they're folded wrong.
Oh yeah.
That's a really basic example that we connect with, but it's representative of so many bigger things. Like, why are we doing this? Is it really the right way, or just what we're used to, or what we've seen as a way that works? So it's the way that works.
And that's why we do it.
Yeah.
That's why if you look at every Republican campaign, right? They want to use campaign sidekick. And you sitting there like, why to use that? Oh, we get into the original voters, those that vote. And you say, but you passing houses up on the block. You got so many houses on the block, but you might go on the block and knock on 2 doors.
Yeah.
You'd be like, why? Because this is how we always done it. And then
or we don't go to the Democrats, we only go to these people. That was one thing that I was so it was so admirable of you, Dr. King, was when you were campaigning, you weren't just going to the Republicans, because you understood the idea that you didn't just represent Republicans, you represented the people of Wisconsin, right?
Right.
And so it drives me nuts when I get text messages from Republicans, because I know for a fact they're not going out to the Democrats asking them, hey, what are the biggest problems we need to deal with in Wisconsin, right? Because they say, oh, we already know the answers, right? And so we don't need to address those.
That's a basic marketing tactic. Like, I have been in social media marketing since about 2018, and before that, frittering and wandering, trying to figure it out. But the biggest thing is listening more than you're talking, so that you know the pain points, know what know where people's struggles are, and even see if what you're offering can, be a solution for that pain point. And then figure out a way to communicate it. And one of the biggest things that I really suggest people learn to use, not from a manipulation standpoint, because I hate that, but from an integrity standpoint. If you can resonate with someone, like, I understand how you feel. I used to feel the same way, or I felt the same way, and here's what I found. It's the feel, felt, found method. It's not mine. I do not claim to own that. It's some marketing guru or whatever. But
remember who that was, actually.
And it's such wisdom. It's like, you have to connect with the person and their pain point and their struggles to even know what the solution needs to be. And how to fulfill it.
I'm so glad you said that, because another quote that I got in the book is from Albert Einstein. And he said, we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we use to create them.
Exactly. Exactly.
So here we are.
The definition of insanity.
Yes.
Yeah, slightly. Yeah. Yeah. I was on a phone call, and I got to ask this question, and the answer was I'm not going to say who the candidate was. Actually, maybe I can, but I asked, what are you going to do getting into office to reduce the size of the government back down to its constitutional boundaries? Basically, his answer was, we need to throw more money at programs.
David Bonner.
No. Think higher. Think the Republican senator.
Ron Johnson?
Yeah. His idea, he did not once say, you're right, we do need to reduce the size of the government. He said, no, we've got to something about admitting there's a problem, and then we need to address the problems. And basically it was throwing more money at it. And it just, oh my gosh, if I'd had more time with him, he would have been reamed over the coals. But
Wait a minute. Hold up. Time out. You mean to tell me you gave him a pass? You
No,
didn't
I
give me a
didn't.
pass.
No, I didn't, because he stopped talking and my line was cut off. I didn't have a chance to. Otherwise, I would have.
They cut you off.
Yeah, they cut me
Oh snap! I
Well,
think they knew that you were going to be coming
yeah.
back. With,
Well, and
Oh.
nobody else
with
was
them.
asking. This was the thing, because nobody else was asking him, what can you do to reduce it? It was, how are you going to save Medicare and Medicaid? How are you going to, how are you going to reform the public education system? And my question was basically, how are you going to destroy these systems because they're not constitutional? And I don't think he liked it. But,
Oh, well,
no.
you think that's something? Let me tell you what happened to me. We had an event, and Rebecca was there,
oh dear.
and I spoke, and then she spoke, and then she took questions, and everybody was asking all these little cute questions. And I said to her, I said, and it was fresh. It just happened. Well, Robin Voss took all of Raptham's and staff,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, and I raised my hand. I guess she figured, okay, he's a candidate. He's going to ask me this little nice question. And I said to her, I said, what do you think about what Robin Voss just did to Tim Raptham?
Mm-hmm.
And her face.
Their expression is all the same. It's like deer in the headlights, and then, oh crap, people are actually thinking.
Right. And so when I asked her the question, she was like, well, I'm the governor. I'm not a state representative.
Yeah.
I'm running for governor. I'm not the state representative. I don't know what they're doing. So what they
Cop out.
right. So
Yeah.
she wouldn't answer the question.
Yeah.
And I'm known for getting in trouble because I always ask not the normal question.
Now I know why you like me so much.
Yeah. So I was at an event, and Karen Mueller was there.
Okay.
And I'm calling names. Y'all know me. I do it anyway. And so everybody was asking her questions about voter fraud and all of that. And she was answering all those questions. So I said, what are you going to do about the backlog of the DNA that people are sitting in jail waiting on to be proven innocent if you would just run the DNA? What are you going to do about that? Well, we're going to need money for that. I looked at her like, did you really just? Well, the problem was she didn't know that she was in charge of the DNA. You're the top cop,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So this is why if the people who running is confused, of course the people going to be confused.
Yeah, and a lot of that we can just blame on, like we said, ignorance. But there's a point when you cannot be ignorant any longer. And so if she had become the AG and she had sat on that and not done anything about it, then we would hold her feet to the fire, right? But if it's a question of, I did not realize this was part of the job description, right? Because going into Karen Mueller, I know for a fact she was definitely, her focus was so honed to the election and the COVID stuff.
Right.
And so that was the reason why she ran. But then what we need to do as the people is, obviously they don't know everything. And so we take those issues and we bring them and say, okay, it's not just election fraud. It's not just COVID stuff. These are constitutional things that are being violated every day. And yeah, you're only one person, but you got into this job, and this is part of the job description.
But she should have known that she had a staff that does the DNA.
Yeah.
It's just like me going out to going to Green Bay and say I want to be a quarterback, and I never knew what height mean.
Yeah.
And the what's her name? Joanne, the run for governor as an independent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there having a conversation with. I said, "You're in a very unique position." I says, "You don't have a lieutenant governor running."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "So, do you know that if you win the governor's seat and Dudley Follett wins Secretary of State, he's your second in command?" No, he's not. I'm sitting there looking at her like, yes, he is. Because right now he's third in command. As says,
And if there's no one in
There's
second
no one in the
command,
middle. Yeah.
then he becomes second. And,
Yeah.
and she said, no, what I'm going to do is get a Republican lieutenant governor. And I'm like, how? She said, because he'll win. She didn't know after the primary that the governor, Republican governor, and the Republican lieutenant governor is now a ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting there like, you running for governor. You don't know this?
Yeah.
And this is why a few months ago I asked in my county group, and I think a couple other regional groups, like, does anybody have any, even like a homeschool curriculum that we can use that literally takes the, I hate to say the word hierarchy, but like all the different electable positions and puts them in a visual chart, and also puts like the dates that they, those elections happen, and the roles and responsibilities. Maybe it's an interactive digital chart or something.
Yeah.
When you click on that position, roles and responsibilities, and just break it down into a visual graphic.
Yeah.
I think I got somebody that does that, because if I check first, and then
That's
if you
what we need to be knowing, even with we the people, because we need to know, one, how does this position impact me? Like the president, that role does not really impact our daily lives.
right.
But like the the city councilmen, the school board people, the county board people, those are the ones that impact us, and how.
But what about this one that sneaks through every spring? DPI.
Yep.
No, a lot of people don't know what DPI is.
Mm.
And you be like, because if they would have knew what DPI was, they wouldn't have voted for Evers to be governor. Because they complained about Common Core, they complained about Common Core math, but then they elected the man who brought Common Core.
Superintendent, yeah.
So you're right. We got a lot of education. Even people running for office. There are people running for office right now.
Yeah.
There's one in Milwaukee running for Congress, and he said to me, "I'm going to get rid of property tax." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say I'm the governor and you get this passed of the property tax." I said, "You know what I'm going to do to you?" He said, "What?" I said, "I'm going to pull out the 10th Amendment." And he says, "You're going to pull out the 10th Amendment? What's the 10th Amendment?" You're running for Congress. You don't know? You don't know that every state can choose not to do what you're saying? You can say no property taxes. Wisconsin say, kiss my grits. We having property tax. Just like when Common Core came out, Texas said we're not doing it. These people don't, they gotta know, because if we're gonna educate the public, right? If we start educating people and then they start asking certain questions, then they become a target. They don't even know why they're a target.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna know, where you getting that from? How do you understand that you're the boss?
Yeah.
I'm the elected official.
Yeah.
But you work for me, so when I call, you better come, or I'm suing you.
Yeah. Even just, teaching constitutional stuff, I know there is still a ton of stuff I don't know about it. And I'm still learning as I go. I'm hoping in January, I'm hoping to start, it's called Black Belt in Freedom. It's a 18-month course and just like deep dive into Constitution and law and liberty and all of so I'm going to be learning even then. And then there's an oral exam at the very end of it. I
love that you're such a nerd too.
I am. I know. Jake just came back from a garage sale.
Look what Jennifer did.
It's hard to see. It's the
nice,
letter. It's the collection of Abraham Lincoln, Volume 7. He could only find Volume 7, so now I've got to get the whole. I think there's 8 volumes in it. I've got to get the whole set now.
Nice.
I think I got 2, 3. I think I got 3 volumes of Frederick Douglass writings.
Yep.
I think I got 3 or 4. I don't know. I just got them.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, you ladies, we gotta empower the people. We gotta. It's gonna cost us time. It ain't gonna cost money. It's gonna cost time.
Mhm.
Time to empower. Time to answer questions. Time to, because we got to be willing to. That's why I had some people today. I don't know if they're on from YouTube or not, but they hungry, right? They really hungry.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to them about it, not putting anybody down or anything like that. But I warned them, if you really want the truth, then I'm going to give it to you. You might not like it,
Yeah.
but I'm going to give it to you.
Yeah, you can't accept the truth only when it's good. You have to also accept the truth when it's not so good or when it's bad, right? Like if we're like, I accept the truth, I'm going to take the truth as it comes, then we have to be willing to accept it all the way through. And yeah, it's easy to say I'll accept the truth when it's something that benefits me. But
And that's the only thing we look at. That's the only thing we look at. You know, and so I tell people this, you know, in order to if the doctor told you got cancer, and the only way you're gonna live if I get that cancer out, and I can cut that cancer out and it'll never come back.
Yeah.
So, but it's gonna hurt when I cut you. So what you want to do? You want me to cut it so you can live, or leave it there so you can die?
Yeah.
Everybody gonna say cut it, right?
Right.
Well, ignorance is a cancer.
Yes.
And we can cut it out.
Yeah.
It's gonna hurt because I'm gonna say this last story, because I was at a barbershop and we was talking politics and Black history, and I was breaking it down, and they was ticked off. They were so ticked off they kicked me out the barbershop.
Oh no.
And I said, I never go back again. No way. And my friend said, go back. But this time, take the DVDs. So I went back, and they was like, you ready to talk? I said, nope. Watch this.
Yeah.
Then I'll be back next week and we talk. And I
It's
gave
not
them,
you saying it. It's
right.
you have something tangible to give. Yep.
So I gave them David Barton, American History in Black and White.
Nice.
Right? So I come back to the barbershop. The barber says, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I thought this. I thought that. I said, oh, so you really watched it? He said, yes, I didn't know. Now he's up in age. I didn't know it was the Democrats that birthed out the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I didn't know. So, and then he was like, oh, I said, but then I gave him another one. And it was Mafa 21. And in Mafa 21, it showed how the NAACP sold out the Black community when the government was sterilizing Black women and single poor white women. They was just sterilizing them, right?
Yeah, that was a Supreme Court decision. Can you believe that?
I know.
Yeah.
And so when they was making noise about it, the NAACP didn't want to hear it. Jesse Jackson didn't even want to hear it.
Yeah.
And they sterilized Black women. And when I gave him the DVD, there was a Black lady, I can't remember her name, in North Carolina, had just won her case. Because after her son was born, they sterilized her.
Yeah.
And they said she was going to be feeble. She wasn't going to be able to take care of herself or her child.
Oh.
So when I started to present them with stuff, right? It was so funny. They apologized.
Yeah.
Then we had the Juneteenth Day Festival. So I took DVDs and I gave them to the Republican Party to pass out at their booth.
Yeah.
Well, the NAACP booth was right across the street. So I walked over there and gave them DVDs. They didn't know the DVDs that I gave them exposed them for what they was doing.
Oh.
So
you are a rebel, aren't you?
so what I did, I gave it to him. This guy went over there and he looked at the DVDs.
Yeah.
And then he walks up to me. He said, he looked at the NAACP. He looked at the Republican Party. He looked at the NAACP. He looked at the Republican Party. He looked at me and said, man, you smart. They telling on their own self.
Yep.
Right. And the thing about it is, I didn't want to tell the NAACP because they wasn't going to listen to me.
Right.
So everybody that went to the NAACP booth, it was passing them out.
Nice.
They gave out Hidden Colors, Marfa 21.
Oh my gosh.
David Barton's. They was
That's
passing it
awesome.
all out.
Yeah.
And I'm just standing middle street watching them both give them out. And they was like,
it's interesting. I wonder if, I wonder if any of them at the booth actually did end up watching it.
oh, they did. And there was a state senator. It was so funny. I gave it to his wife. I said, you need to watch this. He's not going to tell you this. You need to watch this.
Yeah.
And he was like, so what are you saying? I said, you don't have a real truth about the Black community and what they're doing to us. What do you mean I don't? I said, watch the DVDs.
Yeah.
They watched them. When I saw him in the restaurant again, I looked at him and he just bust out laughing because he knew I had him.
Yeah.
He knew I had it. And
Yeah.
this is the thing that we have to do. Just educate. I'm going to a guy and I'm asking him, he's the same guy that purchased the DVDs for me and allowed me to pass them out. I'm going to ask him to sponsor at least 2,000 of these books. And we're just going to go through communities and just say, here, take this, read it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put my number in it and say, call me and tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I let a liberal read it, right? And I'm sitting there watching. And they open it up and they got to read and they say, wait. So it was never supposed to be a two-party system? I said, no, keep reading. So they reading. They said, wait a minute. So you trying to tell me the power's in the hands of the people? I'm like, yes. And then when they got done, they was like, this is like crack. When is the next book coming out? Because now they want to know more.
Yeah.
Because when you read it and it clicks,
Yes.
you know, and that's why I didn't make the book so long, because of the fact that if I made it long, you'd be like, I'll get to it whenever. But when it's small, everybody said, oh, it's small. I can read this right now.
Yeah,
you
not
know?
everybody's a nerd like me picking up thousands of pages of books.
Yeah. I mean, that's why, like, I got into network marketing. I'm not ashamed of that. I'm happy about it. And in the same breath, the marketing books that they use to help train people are short for that exact reason.
Yes.
It makes it short, sweet, palatable,
Yep.
and easy to digest.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's the thing. We can't be doing these big, long history lessons from Magna Carta to now all in one chunk. Like, we need a little. I mean, what's, again, Sarah, or you know, either one of you, I guess.
Yeah.
Using, you know, being like the snake, but
wise as serpents, shrewd as gentle as doves. Yeah.
yes. You know, using their marketing tactics, using the skills and abilities that they're using, but using it for good.
Yeah.
Right.
We know that they have the communication skills, but they're not using it wisely. They're
Right.
not using it with integrity and honor, you know. And so figuring out how are they communicating with people, and they're doing it in small bite-sized chunks. Like, you know, I think both of you mentioned earlier, they're very suave. They're very, you know, compassionate. They care.
Yeah.
And then they feed the lie.
Yeah.
It's the facts tell, but stories sell. They're using the stories. They're the compassion, the charisma.
Yeah.
You know, we can do that with integrity, though. We
Yeah.
can still care and be full of integrity.
Yeah.
And speak truth. And that's the big thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you know,
it's like the church, right? When during the big plagues and the different eras where the church went into the sick and the injured and they tended them, they fed them, right? They didn't just say to the poor, go and God bless you. They gave them food and clothes. They tended their physical needs. And then they shared the love of Christ with them because they were showing by their actions the love of Christ and then putting words behind it.
right, you have to take care of the total man. That's why Jesus says, okay, I done fed them the word, sit them down so they can eat. I don't want them to faint on the way home, then that would make me look bad. So let me take care of them first, and then we send them home.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, like you guys said, short, sweet, to the point. But it has a salt tablet. Then now they want more.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's just even doing these things. I've got to, I've got so much information, but how do I condense it so that it, goes, we don't run over time and I'm actually giving people enough that they want to come back for it, right?
Well, we already over time. It's almost 3 hours. So,
Yeah.
but
Which
you're
I
right.
have to get up and get my kiddo to bed. But
Well, so here's how we're gonna close it. I'm gonna put your face up on the screen, just you. You give your final thoughts for the night. Amber, you gotta come back. We're not taking no for an
Definitely will.
answer. We're not taking no for an answer. Even if we gotta come to your house, and I know you got a gun, even though we come to your house and
I
we do
never
it.
said that.
No.
Well,
Her guns
you-
all are in the bottom of a lake somewhere. We don't know where they are.
Yeah, boating accident.
Yep.
Well, see, my dog ate mine.
That poor dog.
Hey, that's what we used to use for homework. My dog ate my homework. So my dog ate mine.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh gosh.
Oh, Stacy, I like
Oh
that.
no,
We're
Stacy,
saying-
not another half hour, Stacy. No.
Maybe about 10 minutes.
So we're about to say our goodbyes because everybody, they got to get their babies to bed. I got to get to bed. We got church in the morning, and then at 3:00 we got the book signing.
Nice.
So we got it. Yeah. And
set one aside for me.
Oh, I got you. I'm telling you, they're selling so great right now.
Awesome.
I just sat here before I did start the show. I had to order another 125 books.
Wow.
Nice.
Awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity and the knowledge. God blessing. So when I put your face up on the screen, you give your closing argument. I ain't gonna say argument, but your closing statement. And Amber, since you are the newest one, there you go.
All right. Well, my big thing is just get back to knowing your constitutional rights, that they are your God-given natural rights, and learning what your protections are from the Constitution. With what I do, the first, fourth, fifth, 9th, 10th, and 14th Amendments, those are the big ones. And also just knowing the hierarchy of law. If you are a God-loving, God-fearing person, that hierarchy of law goes back to scriptural authority, to God's authority, not man. So with what I do, that's where it's really derived from. And so that's, I think, my closing thing. And I'd be happy to come back whenever, and we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
All right. Is it my turn?
Yes.
All right, here we go. So one of my favorite, and I butcher this all the time, so I got it up on the screen. One of my favorite quotes by our founding father, John Adams, was, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." So we're talking about it. We're educating on it. We're just getting people to start dialoguing and discussing it and understanding it, and not just looking to our experts, our constitutional experts, who know as little, if not less than what the mainstream American citizen knows. This is, again, my passion. Not everybody is a nerd like me and will go through thousands of letters from Jefferson and Madison and Washington, but you can start learning, even just with little bits of information, little bite-sized pieces. When you have questions about our government, when you have questions about faith, when you have questions about freedom and our natural rights, there are so many resources you can go to. Don't go to the mainstream media. Don't go to our politicians, because they're only saying what they think people want to hear. Go to the original sources. If it's a question about faith, go to the scriptures. If it's a question about Thomas Jefferson, go to his writings, see the type of man that he was, the integrity that he lived out. these are just ways that you can learn, and then join these discussions. When we have these discussions, join us and get involved in that way. Not everybody's going to be a governor or a president but you can be a citizen who's fully armed with education, with wisdom, and you can fight back just by the integrity of how you live and how you interact with your community. So we are so glad you guys are here. I absolutely love these times. So thank you so much for the honor of being able to come and teach, even though I am still overcoming my own ignorance in many areas. But thank you for giving me this time to just share what I know and engage in the conversation.
And mine is this: no one is never too old to learn.
Mm.
And we got to be willing to be fat. We got to be willing to be faithful, available, and teachable. And because when we are fat, we can change the world. And I made a promise to myself, I will not leave this earth the way it is right now. I'm going to do my part to turn it around. And so, to the people that are watching from Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn, we want to first of all say thank you for your time. We didn't realize it was going to be 3 hours. You know, we never know what these things goes on, but we do it not to make a name for ourselves. We don't do it to try to show you how smart we are, but we do it to help someone get enlightened and knowing their rights, knowing what God is saying about us, knowing what God wants us to do with this country. Because if we don't go, God can't do it. And so he needs us as vessels and instruments to be used to turn lives around. So this is why we are doing what we do, and we take time out of our schedule, away from our families, to come on here, not because we bored, but because we have an assignment, and that is to help you understand. And we got numbers up there. Y'all can call and ask questions. We even have a phone line. Y'all don't never use it. You type a lot, but you don't call in. Use the phones, and that way, we can have a dialogue with you in the phone. So, this is about empowering the people. If we're going to change anything, we got to do it by empowering everybody. So we love you guys. We did not plan to do a 3-hour show, but when we saw Amber, we had to get her on here, and she came. And I'm kind of sad, but I'm kind of glad at the same time that we didn't have Apostle Shaw, Dr. Shaw, on here, or we'll have a 5-hour show. So, and that's my brother, and he loves what we're doing, and he'll be back next week with us. So we just want to thank you guys. Oh, I need to check something, Sarah. Can you do next week Friday?
Next week Friday. Give me 1 second. Let me check my calendar.
Amber, check yours.
Come on. Oh, my phone is so slow. First world problems, huh? Calendar. There we go.
Yes, as long as we don't stay up to. Oh wait, that week. Yeah. Yep. No, I have no conflicts in my schedule for that week. So.
Yep, I'm good too.
Okay, so we're gonna do next week Friday.
Awesome.
Because I'm in a 8-week class that I have to be a student of on Thursdays. So we can go to Friday and then another day if Friday don't work. But we're not stopping. We're gonna every week we're gonna get this going. My wife put me in this class, and I gotta
do it.
I gotta obey it. I'm gonna tell y'all after.
Are you really complaining? Are you really?
I'm gonna tell y'all after it's over. I'm not gonna tell you right now, but I'm gonna tell you after it's over. You're gonna crack up laughing.
Nice.
But yeah, I was kind of nervous, but having fun at the same time. So once I get comfortable, then I'll be okay. But I tell y'all gonna laugh. I'm telling you, it just. But I got an 8-week class. Yesterday was week 1.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
yeah. Mr. Doula. No, I am not going to be a doula. I am not going to be a doula. No, nah, ain't happening. Because for one, ain't no man gonna want a male doula. Can you imagine that?
I mean, if men are getting pregnant, I suppose.
Well, and there is such a thing as end of life doula that helps people transition out of this body. So, it's not just about birth. I'm just trying to find some way to squeeze it in there, make it work.
I know, right? And I'm sitting there like, Mr. Doula, really? So, Stacey, I'll see you tomorrow because I know you coming to the book signing.
Oh, that's funny.
And then Jennifer said, I was going to say that. You know what? I'm blocking all y'all. I'm done. I'm just going to block y'all. Y'all just doing me so wrong. I'm just blocking everybody. But
I can't wait to hear this story.
I know. Wait till you hear it, though. It's gonna tickle the mess out of you.
Oh my goodness.
We thank everybody. We'll find you.
We'll find you. Oh, that sounds stalkerish. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? I tell you what I go through. They already had told me if I would have quit running for office, what they was going to do to me.
So you had no choice.
I had no choice.
Fun.
They would threaten me with pistols. We know where you live and all of that. They don't know I'm black. We move in the middle of the night. we know how to get away. So
my goodness.
We'll get away in the middle of the night. So,
private investigator, nice.
I know, right?
That was actually one of the things I wanted to be when I was a kid.
A PI? Yeah. Stacey, I ain't saying nothing. I ain't saying nothing.
I will. I might say we need to talk. Good.
I know, right? But we're gonna have a therapy session with you and Jennifer. So yeah, we're calling. We're calling what is this?
PIA. Private Investigator Anonymous?
APS. Adult Protection Services instead of CPA.
There you go.
That's what we're gonna do. Wait a minute, what she say now?
I just need to get paid for my work. That's awesome.
All right,
we'll find a way to compensate.
Yeah, we'll find a way. But we love you guys. We want to thank everybody for being there, coming out. We love you guys. I'll see most of you tomorrow at 3. Sarah, you want me to mail you your book?
Are you coming this way anytime soon?
I do have let me see. I don't know, because I know I have a book signing in Manitowoc on October the 6th.
Okay. Probably, yeah, I can pay for shipping.
Or if we can use the office. Oh, I ain't a candidate, so we won't be able to use the office now.
Oh, we still allow private citizens to use the office.
Because I'm thinking
ahead of time, and it wouldn't. So for candidates, we charge, but if you're doing like an educational thing, we usually still allow the office to be used, and we don't charge for that.
Because maybe I'm thinking about doing a book signing and a discussion.
Yeah.
On that side.
Yeah, you totally should.
Okay, let me look for a date, and I'll let you know.
Perfect.
Okay. So wait, somebody done made a final comment. Who is that?
Oh my gosh. If we keep this up, I'm going to my jaw is starting to hurt from laughing and smiling so much. So
let's all meet at the Pine Cone.
I do so many Zooms now that my muscles have gotten used to it, but
Yeah.
I know the feeling.
See, we cannot go to the Pine Cone.
What is the Pine Cone?
Okay. Pine Cone is a restaurant connected to a gas station, and it's in Johnson Creek.
Okay.
The pine cone, being in the pine cone is just like a crackhead in the dope house.
Why?
Because when you walk in the door and when you go pay for your food, they got these gigantic cookies.
Oh,
They got these gigantic brownies. They got these gigantic
Like a kid in
what
the candy store. I got you now.
okay. Yeah.
so when you go in there, you be like, I'm just gonna pay for my meal.
Do they have
It's-
cinnamon
Blinders
roll?
and
Huh?
Do they have a gigantic cinnamon roll?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Whoever lives near the pine cone, bring me a cinnamon roll.
It's so addictive that I made a video because I went into the gas station that's connected to the restaurant, right? So I go to pay for my gas, and guess what's there? Those big cookies.
Oh no.
And
Cream
so
puffs too? Oh
yes.
goodness.
what?
So when you see it, right, you go in and you sit in there. Now I see why the ambulance is always at the pine cone, because somebody has some diabetic.
Arteries are clogging.
Some diabetic is having a diabetic coma right now because they done died into those cookies. I'm talking about the cookies that are big. They call them monsters. They are big.
Oh wow.
And I tried my best to not order any cookies.
And you just couldn't.
But those peanut butters was calling my name like, hey, David. David. And I'm looking behind me. Ain't nobody behind me. David.
Oh my gosh.
Over here. And
All
I'm
right.
trying. Listen.
It's gonna be a date night for my husband and I at some point because I'm gonna have to at least try it once.
Everything in there is gigantic. They
Yeah.
give you a big, gigantic roll with your big bowl of soup. They don't give you a little cup of soup. They give you a big bowl of soup. So you got a big bowl of soup. You got a big roll. Then you get your food, and then all this dessert. And now you got to walk past the dessert. It's like a person in prison, and they walking in for the first time, and they buy like fresh meat. It's like you walking through, right? And the dessert looking at you like fresh meat, fresh meat. Come and get me. And I guarantee you, you will not walk out of there with your hands empty.
Okay.
They got the cherry pies. They got the apple pies.
Stop.
See, the pies I can say no to because my mom if you've ever had like a Perkins or a Baker's what's it called?
Becker Square.
Yeah, French silk pie.
Uh-huh.
Theirs are good. Theirs are good.
Yes.
But nothing compared to my mom's French silk pie. I like for anything you can buy pre-made, theirs are probably like top of the line. But they still do not rival my mom's. So when it comes to pies, I can usually just like turn a blind eye, like you mean nothing to me. I don't want you.
Well, that's a challenge for me. I've got to make my special peach pie for you one of these days.
Oh, I need a peach
Challenge
pie.
accepted.
It is definitely special.
I need one of those pies. But I'm telling you though, if you are not strong, you don't need to go in the pine cone. I'm just being honest.
I don't need to go in.
It's like you could be on the freeway and you can hear them calling your name, David. And then all of a sudden you say, I need gas. So you go pull in the gas station. Now it's all them other gas stations around there, but you pull in there, and I'm telling you, the cookies is just sitting there, and you just looking at them like, nope. And they're not.
Probably have a little fan on them in the ventilation system, so it like circulates the smell through the entire place. And
and they're not that expensive for a big cookie like that. I think it's like
Right.
$1.25 for a
Oh,
big
wow.
one.
So
And
they really do get you. It's and no wonder they're not expensive. They sell too many of them to jack
exactly.
up the price.
And then I'm telling you, when you go get your food, like one day I went in and they had split pea soup, right? And 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 I'm thinking, okay, my first time there, split pea soup. I'm gonna get a little cup because you know most restaurants give you a cup; they don't give you a bowl.
Mhm.
Well, you got to be Jeffro Bodine because you remember Jeffro from the Beverly Hillbillies,
Mhm.
and you saw how he ate his cereal in them big.
Mm.
They give you a big bowl of soup, big old giant roll. Then you got to walk past because I don't know. For me, when I get done eating, I don't need a cigarette. I need something sweet.
Yeah.
What Stacy say?
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. He asked the waitress to give my dinner roll to a trucker, and she said no. They're watching their blood sugar these days.
I'm telling you, it's just you better have a designated driver because if you eat,
The sugar coma that happens.
Yeah.
it's coming. And
Oh
so,
my gosh, that's funny.
but a shout out to the Pine Cone for real though. It is
Awesome.
they're nice people in there that's working. They the desserts is great, but if you ever in Milwaukee, you need to go to El Greco's. El Greco's is amazing.
Yeah.
They have cheesecakes.
Mm.
They have strawberry shortcake. They have double chocolate cake, German
Oh.
chocolate cake, carrot cake. So
Okay, if we keep talking about this, we are going to go the half an hour
I
that
was
Stacey said.
just thinking that too. Yeah, we've gone 20
Yeah.
minutes on it.
so we're closing because Stacey had to say pine cone. She knows
Yeah.
that.
It's her fault.
It's her
yeah.
fault. She was meaning to keep us on a half an hour late.
Have you ever saw the movie New Jack City?
No.
Okay. Well, in New Jack City, there was a guy that got hooked on crack, and he kept saying, "They kept calling me, man. They just kept calling me."
Yeah.
That's the pine cone.
If
You
I have
walk in.
dreams about this tonight, I'm blaming you guys.
She gonna say,
If I make cinnamon rolls in the morning tomorrow, I'm blaming you guys.
Can I come over?
I know.
Don't know how to make them. I'm kidding.
So
Oh, we got to do cinnamon rolls.
I'm sure I could figure it out. Yes, we totally should.
so Black River Falls is not that far from the pine cone.
Are you kidding me? Stop it.
Well, it is that far, but
Oh.
it's worth the drive.
But we'll make time for it.
Well, I drive to Chanhassen every week, so that's probably nothing.
But I'm telling you, it's a bomb. But you come to Milwaukee, we got to go to El Greco's. They give you too much food.
Okay.
Unless you hungry, you're not gonna eat it all.
Sounds good.
And then they have the dessert is right in your face too. Now they good with their when you got to walk past the dessert to get to your table, and then you got to come back past the dessert to get to pay out. But they have one of the most best chocolate pudding.
Oof.
And then they put whipped cream on top. So I'm done. So Stacy, we'll get you for this one.
No, we'll just make her pay for it when we go.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be her treat.
It'll be her treat. And I'm walking out of there with 10 cookies.
No
Oh,
food,
you're a
just cookies.
high buyer.
10 cookies. But no, everybody, we thank y'all for being with us. A little laughter goes a long way for me.
Yes.
So we thank you guys again. Wait.
Oop, let me.
Oh, there they go. Hey. They probably come to police us and say, get off. So,
I'm surprised my
my mom
kiddo
walking
isn't out here yet,
Yeah.
but he's probably sprawled out on the bed, zonked out.
all right. So everybody, we want to say thank you.
Yep.
And we will talk to you guys soon.